Chapter 1135. Good morning. The sound of footsteps could be heard coming from outside the hall. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, but the door was pushed open after a minute or two. Wu Yen and Kotori came out wearing the Raichan High School uniform. They entered the hall together with Kotori, who is also wearing the same uniform. Sister. With a sweet voice, Kotori, who was wearing a black ribbon, put on an innocent and romantic smile. Onii-chan is up. Shiori smiled when she heard Kotori's cheerful voice. But, when she saw Wu Yan's tired face and how he looked like he could die at any moment, her smile turned bitter. Kotori is always in charge of waking you up. Shoujo, can't you be more energetic in the morning? Every morning, Shiori would say the same thing in front of everyone. Wu Yen got used to it, so he replied back out of habit. Sleeping in is the happiest thing in the morning, Shiori, you don't understand. I don't want to understand either. Shiori glared at Wu Yen. Be careful, you won't be able to find a girlfriend if you get too lazy. Shiori forgot that Toka is Wu Yan's girlfriend and Kurumi is Wu Yan's fiancée. Wu Yen raised an eyebrow. He glanced at Toka and Kurumi, who were eating gracefully at the table. He also glanced at Kotori and smiled. Thank you for your concern. You. Shiori shook her head and gave up trying to persuade him. Forget it, let's eat breakfast, we're late for school. Yes, at the dining table, everyone's response reverberated throughout the entire hall, causing Shoujo to be in a bad mood as she placed the breakfast in her hands on the dining table. Then, he continued to prepare new portions. Can't help it. 10 spices had already eaten more than 70% of the breakfast. If they didn't prepare more, Shiori would probably not be able to eat anything herself, not to mention that it might not be enough for the others. But Shiori turned around. She went into the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Kurumi suddenly spoke. Itsuka-san, I have something to talk to you about. Shiori was stunned. She pointed at her own nose. Me? Kurumi nodded with a smile. Shiori tilted her head in confusion. Are you sure it's me? Kurumi blinked her eyes and looked at Shiori's incredulous expression. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Allah, Wu-hee classmate, is it something to be surprised about that I'm looking for you? No, it's not that. Shiori looked away awkwardly. It's the first time you came to me. Indeed, because of Kurumi's status as Shido's fiancé, Shiori, who supported her on 10 Fragrance's side, wasn't hostile to Kurumi, but she wasn't friendly either. Usually, they didn't talk much, let alone Kurumi taking the initiative to look for her. That's why Shiori was so surprised. I just wanted to talk to you about something. Kurumi closed her eyes and she chuckled. Her words caught everyone's attention except for Wu Yen. For the next period of time, I may have to leave this house temporarily. Leave this house? Shiori exclaimed. Toka also stopped eating and looked at Kurumi with surprise. Kotori even spat out a mouthful of food and exclaimed, Why haven't I heard about such an important thing from you? Shiori frowned when she saw Kotori's strange reaction. Kotori was startled and immediately adjusted her posture. However, her red eyes were fixed on Kurumi. She was anxious and suspicious. Tokozaki-san, are you really going to leave? Shiori looked at Kurumi and asked. Can I ask why? It's nothing important, Tokozaki-san, don't worry. Kurumi tilted her head and pointed at her face. It's just that my family is a little worried and asked me to go back and take a look. Speaking up to here, Kwang-san's face was still filled with regret. My home is too far away and it might take me a while to get back. I have to ask for leave from school, so I'm going to tell Tokozaki-san. Kotori opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but because Shiori was there, she could only shut her mouth. Her eyes were locked on Kurumi, and her expression was constantly changing. Shiori, on the other hand, felt that there was nothing wrong. After pondering for a moment, she nodded. Then I guess I have no choice. Thank you for taking care of me. Kurumi stood up and bowed to Shiori. Shiori didn't have much of a young lady's temperament, so she smiled awkwardly. In that case, let's prepare a big breakfast for Tokazaki-san. Allah! Kwang-san pursed her lips and smiled. Thank you for your hospitality, Tokazaki-san. You're welcome. Shiori waved her hand and went into the kitchen. What's going on? As soon as Shiori left, before Toka and Yoshino could react, Kotori shot an oppressive gaze at Kurumi. Leaving? Are you kidding me? I'm kidding. I'm not joking. Kurumi shook her head. She didn't avoid Kotori's gaze and looked straight at her. I do have something to do, so I need to leave for a while. Hearing Kurumi's words, Kotori's expression sank. Don't forget what Ratatosker did to you. Kotori's voice turned hostile. Because you are an elf, your situation is special. Ratatosker punished you by sending you into exile and monitoring you. If you do anything suspicious again, there is a high chance that you will be imprisoned for the rest of your life. Kurumi's expression didn't change in the slightest, but she didn't say anything. On the side, Toka and Yoshino were holding their breath. Looking at the stalemate between Kurumi and Kotori, their eyes were full of anxiety and worry, but they were suppressed by the heavy atmosphere and didn't dare to speak. They could only stare there, not knowing what to do. Wu Yen looked at Kotori and he opened his mouth. Kotori, I allowed this to happen. You? Kotori looked at Wu Yen and frowned. Why? Because. There are some things that Kurumi has to do herself. Wu Yen shook his head. Kotori, let Kurumi leave for a while. Kurumi is being monitored by Ratatosker, Kotori said. I don't have the final say in Ratatosker. No matter what, Kurumi has killed more than 10,000 humans, so to be honest, this isn't a wise choice. Something bad might happen. Let's talk about it when the time comes. Wu Yen answered and he met Kotori's gaze. Kotori, don't you trust Kurumi? Kotori's frown deepened. She glanced at Kurumi, who was staring at her, and sighed. It's not that I don't trust Kurumi. It's just that Kurumi is a dangerous person. If you want her to leave, you won't seal her power, right? How can you make others feel at ease? Even if I believe Kurumi, it's not like you don't know the side effects of her angel era. You don't have to worry about that. Kurumi's mouth curved into an evil grin. In order for me to use the Carving Emperor without any side effects, Lord Husband has gifted me a lot of time last night. Kwang-san licked her lips as if she was recalling something. If I don't use the Bullet of 11 and the Bullet of 12, even if I keep using the Carving Emperor, I can still use it for a few years. I don't need to hunt other people to make up for the time. Therefore, during this period of time, I won't touch a single hair of those ordinary people. This time, Kotori was in a dilemma. Kotori looked at Kurumi, who was grinning from ear to ear. Then, she looked at Wu Yen, who nodded at her. She lowered her head and she started thinking. Chapter 1136. Time quietly flowed by in a state of relative silence. Wu Yen, Kurumi, Toka, and Toka are all looking at Kotori, waiting for her decision. Time is ticking and Shiori is humming in the kitchen, but Kotori still hasn't made a decision. It's natural. Just like Kotori said, Kurumi is an evil elf who killed more than 10,000 humans. She's a dangerous existence in the eyes of those who know her. Right now, Kurumi's spiritual force was sealed and she was being monitored by Ratatosker. If Kurumi was allowed to leave after regaining control of her elven powers, Ratatosker's treatment of her might change. When that happens, even Kotori won't be able to do anything. Kotori wasn't the one who created Ratatosker, and she's not the one in charge. If the higher-ups decide to punish Kurumi, what can Kotori do? She can either watch from the sidelines or interfere. One thing is for sure, if Kurumi ends up in jail, Wu Yen wouldn't just sit by and watch her do nothing. Kotori doesn't want to see Wu Yen and the person behind Ratatosker fight each other. Wu Yen is the most important person in Kotori's life. He's the one behind Ratatosker. In a way, Kotori can't afford to betray him. What will happen if they start fighting each other? Kotori can't imagine it. The best decision is to keep Kurumi alive and maintain the status quo. However, looking at the smile on Kurumi's face and the gleam in her eyes, how could Kotori not know that Kurumi would run away if she tried to stop her? At that time, once the crime of absconding for fear of punishment was placed, things would really take a turn for the worst. But she can't let Kurumi go. If something goes wrong, the consequences will be worse. She's not a human being. Kotori's face was full of distress, and her eyes flickered. Clearly, she was in a difficult position. Perhaps because she couldn't stand the heavy silence, Ten Incense suddenly spoke. I don't know what's going on. Toka's handsome face met Kotori's. A resolute expression appeared on his face. But if it's me, if there's something I have to do but I can't do it, it'll be hard. Kotori was stunned. I think so too. Toka glanced at Kotori. She mustered up her courage. If you don't do it well, your mind will be messed up. Kwang-san was slightly surprised when she heard the words of 10 incense and 4 ginseng, but the smile on her face had already widened a little. Wu Yen chuckled and he shrugged at Kotori. That's right. So, Kotori, let Kurumi go, you guys. Kotori rubbed her forehead with a bitter smile. Her hesitant look was gone. She stared at Kurumi and said, Let me ask you, what are you going to do? Kurumi raised her eyebrows and pretended to ponder. She tilted her head and replied with a smile, This is a secret. Kotori glared at Kurumi and snorted. Let's change the question, you won't hurt others, right? This question really stumped me. Kwang Sanjiu's red eyes flashed with suppressed bloody light. The corner of her mouth hooked up into an extremely dangerous arc. Well, at least I won't cause trouble for others, but if I'm in a bad mood, I'll leave a permanent mark on those who make me unhappy. How can I let you go like this? Kotori wanted to slap the table, but that would attract Shiori's attention. She suppressed her anger and glared at Wu Yen. Is this your decision? This is Kurumi's decision. Wu Yen answered without hesitation. I'm just saying that I support her. The bloodlust in Kurumi's eyes quickly melted away, replaced by an unprecedented gentleness. Kotori couldn't bear to watch any more and covered her forehead. She couldn't bear to watch any longer, so she turned her head away in despair. Do whatever you want. I won't help you if something happens. That's more than enough. Kurumi's delicate face relaxed a little. It doesn't matter if Kotori agrees or not because Kurumi has already decided to look for the second elf even if Kotori doesn't agree. She has Wu Yan's support, right? For Kwang-san, this was already enough. As for whether she'll ask the second elf about the original elf's whereabouts or something else, she'll have to wait and see. After all, even Kurumi herself doesn't know what to do. She can only do as Wu Yen said, she'll try first. Following Kotori's agreement, the heavy atmosphere in the room dissipated, allowing Toka and Yoshino to heave a sigh of relief and smile. Toka leaned forward and asked Kurumi. Then, Kurumi, when are you leaving? Well, Kurumi thought for a bit. I'll go to the school to say goodbye to the teachers and then I'll leave. So soon? Toka wrinkled her nose. When are you coming back? I don't know. Kurumi shook her head and glanced at Wu Yen with a smile. Maybe I'll be back soon, maybe I'll wait until Atsusama leaves this world, but no matter what, I'll be back. That's good. 10 Incense clapped her hands and greeted Kurumi. Hurry up and eat, Shiori said that you'll have the strength to do things when you're full. Yes. Kurumi chuckled and responded with a crisp voice. She sat down and began to enjoy her breakfast. What a troublemaker. Kotori sighed. She was still a little annoyed. What a troublemaker. Looks like I'll be busy from now on. Not only do I have to report to Ratatosker's members, but I also have to prepare for your psychic wave. Wu Yen scratched his cheek and asked Kotori. Do you want to report this to your superiors? Yes. Of course. Kotori said snappily. Even though it'll be troublesome, it's still better than hiding it and causing trouble. We still have to apply for a display device from the higher-up. If something happens at this juncture, we'll have no choice but to snatch the display device from AST and DEM. Wu Yen smiled awkwardly and shrugged at Kurumi, Toka, and Yoshino. The three elven girls giggled. At that moment, a light melody came from Wu Yan's pocket along with the vibration of something. Phone. Wu Yen blanked out for a bit before taking out his phone from his pocket. Looking at the unfamiliar number on the display, he picked it up in confusion. Hello. For a split second, Wu Yen heard sounds of panic and chaos coming from the other side of the phone. Then, a somewhat stiff and nervous voice came from the other side of the phone. It's me. Wu Yen furrowed his brows when he heard this. Then, he finally recalled the face of the owner of this beautiful voice in his mind, and he exclaimed in surprise. Seducing Meijio? The air froze. The four girls looked at Wu Yen at the same time. Toka and Yoshino looked at him suspiciously, Kurumi smiled and Kotori looked at him inquisitively. Wu Yen didn't have the time to think about this. He's still in a state of shock that Meiju would call him. You actually called me. Didn't you ask me to call you? On the other side of the phone, Meiju sounded a bit nervous. She's completely different from her previous arrogant self when she attacked him. Wu Yen was confused, but he still asked her with a smile. Then why are you calling me? Meiju went silent for a while before speaking again. Didn't you want to hear me sing? The smile on Wu Yan's face slowly receded and turned into a serious expression. Do you want to use your own voice? Meiju opened her mouth and her voice trembled. She didn't want to use her own voice to sing. I won't go. Wu Yen refused. I don't want to listen to a song sung by that fake voice at all. Wu Yen hung up the phone without giving Meiju a chance to respond. Hearing the busy tone from the phone, Meiju's bright silver eyes gradually dimmed. She laughed at herself. What a self-righteous man! Without this voice, who would listen to me sing? Chapter 1137. One or two will only cause me trouble. Walking alone in the dark corridor, Kotori grumbled to herself with a bitter smile on her face. Kotori has changed out of her school uniform and replaced it with the crimson military uniform she wore in Ratatoskr. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that even though Kotori was wearing a dark red military uniform, she didn't drape her coat over her shoulders as usual. Instead, she was dressed very formally, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a formal attire. On top of that, the precious pearl that was always in his mouth was gone as well. Compared to her usual frivolous appearance, she looks a lot more formal. Kotori's appearance made one think of an unruly little princess with an erratic personality forcing herself to be polite in order to attend an important banquet. Right now, Kotori was giving off such an atmosphere. Of course, if you ignore the impatient and helpless expression on Kotori's face from time to time. Kotori's footsteps and mutterings could be heard clearly in the silent corridor. She could even hear her heartbeat. Kotori couldn't help but feel a little nervous when the three voices intertwined. This unprecedented nervousness wasn't because of the sound, but rather because of Kotori's current location. Ratatosker's headquarters. That's where Kotori's superior works. And now, Kotori was going to meet her direct superior. There are two things: the application for the display device, and the report on Kurumi's incident. Because of these two reasons, Kotori immediately applied for leave from school. She rushed here as fast as she can to solve the problem in one go. Kotori wasn't just complaining. She was truly annoyed. She applied for a large number of display devices for no reason, including the personal combat display device, the CR unit. How can her superior just give it to her without asking for the reason? After all, Ratatoskr only has a small number of members and almost none of them are qualified to equip the CR unit. Why would they apply for a large number of display devices for no reason? Without asking for the reason. There was no way Yasgate Electronics would make a display just because Kotori said so. Kotori had to give him a reasonable reason to obtain these devices. and Kurong-san's matter was also a troublesome matter. In order to prevent the person most important to her from opposing her benefactor, Kotori has to try her best to convince her superior to prevent the worst from happening. Plus, she had a chance to seduce Meijio. However, she was mercilessly rejected by her brother. If Shiori wasn't there, she would have been furious. Kotori wanted to give Wu Yen a good round of cannons, even though Kotori's spiritual power is still in Wu Yan's hands. Seriously, nothing can stop me from worrying. Kotori rubbed her forehead and adjusted her state of mind. She walked to the end of the corridor and stopped in front of a door. Kotori took a deep breath and hesitated. Then, she knocked on the door unhurriedly. Kotori, reporting for duty. His voice was not loud, but it echoed in the corridor. It was only after 4 or 5 seconds that it gradually calmed down. Almost at the same time, a voice sounded from the other side of the door. Come in. Hearing this, Kotori took another deep breath, pushed open the door and walked in. It wasn't a spacious office behind the door, but an ordinary study room. The 4 walls of the study were filled with bookshelves filled with books. Behind a desk in the innermost part of the study, an old man in his 50s with white hair and a long beard was sitting on a swivel chair. He crossed his arms and supported his chin with the back of his hand. He gazed at Kotori, who walked into the room with a peaceful smile on his face like an amiable old man. As soon as Kotori saw the elderly man, her expression turned solemn and her eyes revealed a look of respect. This old man is the founder of Ratatosker, Elliot Baldwin. Baldwin? Woodman. He's also Kotori's benefactor. Woodman-sama. Kotori stopped 2 to 3 meters away from the desk and bowed deeply. Seeing Kotori's respectful look, Woodman's smile widened, and he looked more and more peaceful. Long time no see, Commander Wuha. I'm relieved to see you in such good spirits. Thank you for your concern, Lord. Kotori nodded. She seemed to really respect Woodman. Woodman was gratified, but at the same time, he felt a little helpless. It's not time for the annual round table conference yet, right? Commander Wuha. Woodman straightened his back when he saw Kotori standing in front of him. The round table conference hasn't started yet and you're already here. If I'm not mistaken, you're here to apply for the display device, right? Kotori held her breath and nodded. That's part of the reason. There's another thing I need to report. Then let's talk about the display device. Woodman smiled and picked up an application form signed by Itsuka Kotori from the table. There was a lot of information written on it. If other people were to see the information recorded on it, they would definitely be shocked. That was because what was recorded on the application form were all display devices that had a wide range of uses and extraordinary performance. Other than the display devices for other purposes, just the display devices for personal combat, the CR units alone numbered in the tens of thousands. Furthermore, all of them were the latest and most powerful. When I first received this application form, even I was shocked. Woodman smiled bitterly. If all the display devices on this application form are really manufactured, then Yasgate Electronics Company might even go bankrupt. I can't believe that this application form was personally submitted by you, Commander 5 River. Woodman paused for a moment before he added in a playful tone. Don't tell me this is a prank from you, Commander Wuha? Even Kotori, who respected Woodman greatly, couldn't help but smile bitterly. If Woodman said it was a prank, one can only imagine how ridiculous the display device Kotori applied for is. These display devices would all be used to equip the base in the giant beast's forest. The CR unit would also be used by the 20,000 sisters. It was equivalent to creating an organization bigger than the AST. How could Woodman not be surprised, or even shocked? Kotori had already predicted the reaction she would get from submitting this application form. Woodman was probably the only one who saw this application form. If the rest of the higher-ups saw it, Kotori would be drowned in saliva by now. But it couldn't be helped. This batch of display devices had to be obtained. Therefore, even though Coterie knew her words might cause a huge commotion, she still replied seriously with a tense expression. "Commander Woodman, it's true." The smile on Woodman's face slowly disappeared. Looking at Coterie's serious expression, he frowned deeply. "Commander Wu, you should know how unrealistic your request is, right?" Woodman looked at the application form in his hand and closed his eyes as if he couldn't bear to look at it. Even if Yasgate Electronics has the ability to create the display device above, the budget spent on it is definitely an extremely huge amount. If it is really implemented, Yasgate Electronics will definitely be emptied and will only exist in name. Woodman looked straight at Coterie. "Commander Wuha, do you understand how unreasonable this request is?" "Yes. Yes." Under Woodman's gaze, Coterie didn't seem to notice anything. Her expression didn't even change, but she said something that made Woodman's expression change. "Therefore, I will be responsible for the cost of creating the display devices." Chapter 1138. Therefore, I will take full responsibility for the cost of the device. Woodman's expression changed when he heard Coterie's serious words. In this world, there were only two organizations that had the ability to create display devices: Yasgate Electronics Company and DM. As the only two organizations in the world that have the technology to create the device, they might not be the richest in the world, but they are definitely one of the wealthiest organizations. Under such circumstances, Yasgate Electronics would face the danger of losing all of its funds to manufacture the display device Coterie requested. It wasn't hard to imagine how much funds Coterie needed to manufacture the display device. However, Coterie said she will take full responsibility for the cost. Apart from her identity as the commander of Ratatoskr, Coterie is just a little girl from an ordinary family. Can she afford such a huge amount of money? The answer is no. Woodman, who knows Coterie's family well, can't help but think that Coterie is pranking him. But because Woodman knew Coterie well, he knew Coterie wasn't joking. Woodman's eyes gradually narrowed. His pupils constricted into the shape of needles as he spoke in a deep voice. "Commander Five Rivers, are you serious?" The heavy atmosphere in the silent study room continued to rise. Coterie closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were filled with determination. Woodman, who had witnessed this scene, fell silent. Following Woodman's silence, the entire study suddenly fell into an indescribable, stifling silence. If someone were to stay here, perhaps, if anyone was in the study room, they would have a hard time maintaining their breathing under the heavy atmosphere. After a long time, Woodman raised his head and looked at Coterie. "May I ask, where do you plan to get the money?" Coterie lowered her head and pondered for a moment before answering. "This fund was entrusted to me by my brother. He asked me to use it at this time." That's right, the money Coterie wanted to use to create the device was given to her by Wu Yen himself. Wu Yen predicted that in the end, the matter of requesting the display device from the higher-ups of Ratatoskr would escalate to a financial issue. After all, the quality and quantity of the display devices they needed were simply too high, too many. Even the Yasgate Electronics Company might not be able to afford it. Moreover, Coterie didn't apply for the device for Ratatoskr. It was a personal request. Therefore, Yasgate Electronics wouldn't spend such a huge amount of money to create a display device for Coterie's request. The display device wasn't something that could be given away casually. If they didn't use it well, it might become the source of a disaster. Even with Coterie's trust, the higher-ups were willing to give away the device. However, if they didn't solve the basic problem of funding, they wouldn't be able to negotiate. Therefore, the next morning after returning to the date world, Wu Yen gave Coterie a space ring filled with gold coins. The value of gold in this world was very high. Wu Yen can casually take out any one of these gold coins and exchange it for a large sum of money. If he were to take out all the gold coins in the ring of gold, then the sum of all the wealth in the world wouldn't even amount to 1/10,000th of the gold coins in the ring of gold. Wu Yen only needed to take out a drop in the ocean of gold from the ring of gold, and he could use it to create these devices. This would make the base in the giant beast forest more secure and the 20,000 Misaka sisters more powerful. Why wouldn't he do it? If it wasn't for the gold coins, Kotori wouldn't have dared to submit the application. Upon hearing Kotori's words, Woodman was taken aback. Shortly after, he recalled something. He suddenly thought of something and his expression turned serious. You must be referring to the mysterious person who isn't an elf or a magician but has power comparable to an elf, right? Kotori nodded slowly. Woodman fell into deep thought. Woodman had already noticed Wu Yen when he first arrived in this world with the spacequake. Both AST and DM thought Wu Yen is a spirit, but Kotori's connection made it clear to Woodman that Wu Yen isn't a spirit. Of course, Woodman didn't know Wu Yan's true identity. Kotori didn't report the fact that Wu Yen is a vampire to the higher-up. Before becoming Wu Yan's summon, Kotori didn't even know where Wu Yen came from. How could she report that? Thus, in the eyes of Woodman and the other Ratatoskr members, Wu Yen is shrouded in mystery. There's nothing about him that isn't a mystery. Now, this enigmatic existence took out a large amount of money to create a large number of display devices. Fifth River Commander. Woodman looked at Kotori with a meaningful gaze. Don't tell me the display devices you applied for is what your brother needs? Kotori narrowed her eyes for a moment before she relaxed and answered truthfully. Yes, Lord Woodman. Just as you guessed, it was my brother who requested the display devices. Woodman pursed his lips, and a look of dissatisfaction appeared in his eyes. Fifth River Commander, the display devices aren't something that can be given away. If someone uses them for evil purposes, do you know what will happen to this world that's already facing a disaster? Lord Woodman, I understand your concern. Kotori looked up with a bitter smile. But I think that your concerns are unnecessary. Woodman's interest was piqued by Kotori's words. Why? The reason is simple. Kotori took a deep breath. Her red eyes flashed. If my brother wants to destroy this world, no one can stop him. He doesn't need the display devices at all. Woodman's expression changed drastically as overwhelming waves surged in his heart. Even his hands were clenched into fists. His shrewd eyes rippled with waves that were difficult to suppress. No one can stop it? Woodman closed his eyes as if he didn't want others to see him lose his composure. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile, but that smile seemed forced no matter how one looked at it. Looks like the real danger in this world isn't the elves but this mysterious existence. Seeing how Woodman was trying his best to suppress something, Kotori felt a little apologetic, but that was the truth. If Wu Yen really wants to destroy this world, all he needs to do is release a vassal beast and have it run around the world. Then the world will enter the Stone Age. The only way to deal with familiars was to use mana to neutralize them. However, in this world, mana wasn't real mana. It was just a form of energy that powered the display device. It couldn't deal with familiars at all. Kotori was only speaking the truth. All right. The application for the display devices is approved. Woodman looked at Kotori and said in a deep voice, but I hope that existence will always be on our side. Kotori finally let out a sigh of relief and respectfully agreed. Don't worry, my brother has unimaginable power, but he doesn't have much ambition. As long as there are no accidents, he won't do anything. That's good. Woodman nodded with a kind smile on his face. I will be in charge of the display devices. Make them as soon as possible. Of course, you'll have to fork out the funds yourselves. Asgate Electronics can't afford it. Yes. Kotori bowed and hesitated for a moment. One more thing, Tokisaki Kurumi has left the Itsuka family. Tokisaki Kurumi left? Woodman furrowed his brows and said with uncertainty. Is it your brother's idea again? Yes. A little. This. Woodman smiled bitterly. He's pretty much certain that the most dangerous existence in this world is Wu Yen. They have a way to deal with the elves, but they don't have a way to deal with Wu Yen. Chapter 1139. In Heavenly Palace City, there is a building that is far taller than all the other buildings. This building is the branch office of DM in Heavenly Palace City. Because Heavenly Palace City is the place where space tremors happen the most frequently in recent years, it is also the place where elves appear the most frequently. Therefore, DM has already set up a branch office in Heavenly Palace City in order to effectively capture or kill elves. As the only two organizations in the world that can create display devices, DM is the same as AST. They advocate killing elves to bring peace to the world. Or rather, it is precisely because DM advocates killing elves that AST has the same goal. After all, whether it is AST or the military police of other countries, the display devices are all provided by DM. Although in terms of technology, DEM was a bit weaker than Yaskit Electronics Company, in terms of reputation, DEM surpassed Yaskit Electronics Company by quite a bit. At least, on the surface, almost everyone who knows about the existence of display devices knows about DM. However, there are not many people who know about the existence of Asgate Electronics. Of course, DM and Asgate Electronics both know about each other's existence. Just like how there are good people and bad people in every world, in this world, these two organizations that have the ability to create display devices are also archenemies. Asgate Electronics Company advocated peaceful means of communication. In order to save elves, the threat of space tremors to the world will be eliminated without a trace. DM advocates using force to suppress and destroy elves to bring peace to the world. How can two organizations with completely opposite natures not become archenemies? Of course, this is only on the surface. In all large organizations, there are people with evil intentions. DM said that they plan to destroy elves and bring peace to the world, but there are also people who have evil intentions towards elves in this branch office building. There is such a person. It is a person wearing a suit. He was a tall man with a head full of dull grayish-golden hair and a pair of sharp eyes that seemed to have been carved out of his face with a small knife. The man looks to be at most 35 years old, but he gives people a feeling that he has experienced the vicissitudes of life and is very experienced. From time to time, the corner of his mouth would curl up into a smile like a wild wolf staring at its prey. It is full of danger. It was also a little nauseating. Isaac Le Bellum Will Coate, the executive director of the DEM company, in essence the upper management. This was because the DM was the main organization that provided the military with the display device. As long as he gave the order, the military strength of many countries would drop to the point where they would be left far behind by other countries. In this branch company, or even in this country, Wilcott was an existence that could cover the sky with one hand. Even if DEM is just a company, holding a glass full of red wine in his hand, Westcott looked at the scenery of Heavenly Palace City outside the window and sighed quietly. Isn't it said that there are many elves in Heavenly Palace City? Why was it so peaceful? After that, Wilcott stretched out his hand toward Heavenly Palace City outside the window and then clenched it tightly. How great would it be if the DM company mastered the technology of freely summoning Spacequake? This way, no matter how many sprites there are, they would be able to find them. If an ordinary person heard this, they would definitely run away and blacklist Wilcott, never to see him again. In order to find a sprite, he didn't hesitate to summon Spacequake. I'm afraid Wilcott doesn't care about the lives of the residents of Heavenly Palace City. Wilcott retracted his hand as if it was the most normal thing in the world. He sighed again and shook the glass full of red wine. At this moment, a tall and beautiful woman dressed like a secretary pushed open the door of the room and walked towards Wilcott. Irene? As if he already knew who came, Wilcott smiled without turning his head. It's rare to see someone come to me at this time. I'm always here. The beautiful woman called Irene was holding a folder in her hand, and there was no expression on her pretty face. If you want to find me, just give me a shout, is that so? Westcott narrowed his eyes. It was hard to tell if he was happy or disdainful when he smirked. If you're looking for me at this time, there must be something good, right? I don't know if it's a good thing or not. She opened the folder in her hand and took out a document. However, there is one thing that I need to report to you. Report? Westcott chuckled and shook his head. If it's something annoying, let's talk about it tomorrow. It should be something you're interested in. Irene glanced at Wolcott and put the document on the glass table in front of him. There was a photo on the document. It was a photo of a boy and two girls in high school uniforms walking forward, talking and laughing. The boy in the middle had black hair and red eyes. He looked like he was in his 20s. The woman walking on the left had long purple hair that reached her waist and a pair of dreamy crystal-like eyes. As for the woman on the right, her long black hair was tied into two ponytails in front of her. Her bangs were long enough to cover one of her eyes. Seeing the three of them, Westcott, who had been uninterested, felt his heart skip a beat. His sharp gaze landed on the photo, which shone brightly. Wolcott had never seen the three of them before, but he saw them in the video of the battle between AST and the elves. Red Devil, Princess, Nightmare. Westcott uttered the names one by one. Every time he uttered a name, his heart would beat violently, and his body would even tremble. Obviously, he had already entered a state of extreme excitement. Seeing Westcott suppressing his excitement, Irene closed her eyes and slowly spoke. That young man's name is Itsuka Shoujo, the purple-haired girl is Otoka Toka, and the black-haired girl is Shikisaki Kurumi. They seem to be living together and studying at a school called Laichan High. Due to the fact that the three of them look shockingly similar to the Red Devil, Princess, and Nightmare, the intelligence personnel collected some information about them. When Irene reached this point, she frowned. However, from the information, they seemed to be ordinary students. There was no reaction from the elves. The system determined them to be ordinary people. Ordinary people? Wolcott's eyes widened. He covered his face and laughed out loud. 3 ordinary people who have the same appearance as the 3 elves? Coincidentally, they're all in the same place? Do you believe it? Indeed. If that's the case, it's too much of a coincidence. Irene nodded expressionlessly. However, the information doesn't show any differences in their background. We can't conclude they're elves. Oh. Scott picked up the photo on the table and stared at the 3 people in it. The corner of his lips curled up slightly. You mean we can't conclude they're not elves? Yes. Elaine paused and nodded, causing a dangerous smile to appear on Scott's face. Isn't this interesting? Scott looked at Irene and handed her the photo. Looks like we need to investigate this. Irene, I'll leave it to you. Are you sure? Irene frowned again. Her face was filled with uncertainty. If the investigation is correct, our opponents will be 3 elves. Westcott's brow rose, his gaze toward Irene becoming more and more interested. Don't you have the confidence to deal with 3 elves? Irene. Irene's expression turned serious. There's no elf in this world that I can't defeat. Westcott laughed delightfully when he heard the words. Then I'll leave it to you. Mira? Messier. The world's strongest magician. Chapter 1140. Tiangong City, Laichan High School, Teacher's Office, Tokisaki classmate, are you sure you want to take such a long leave? A petite teacher, who had the face of a high school student or even a junior high school student, said regretfully to Kurumi, who was standing in front of her and exuding an elegant aura. We're going to have a trip soon. If you take such a long leave, you won't be able to go. Kurumi was slightly startled, then her face was full of regret. Is that so? That's a pity. If possible, Kurumi really wanted to go on a trip with Wu Yen. It's really unfortunate that she chose to leave at this time. Kwang-san forced a smile in his heart. But my family is already urging me, so... Then, there's no other way. The child-faced teacher lowered her head. She looked like a primary school student who was about to cry after being bullied. Even Kurumi couldn't help but doubt in her heart at this time. In front of her, is the teacher with a child-faced big boobs really almost 30 years old? Then, Tokisaki classmate, I hope you can come back soon. The teacher tilted her head and smiled. Even if you can't go on the trip, there will be a large-scale cultural festival held by 10 high schools in Tiangong City. It's an annual event. Tokisaki classmate, if you miss this, it will be a real regret. Tiangong Festival. Kurumi blinked her eyes and a charming smile appeared on her face. That's really exciting. I'll solve my problem as soon as possible. That's good. Okamoto nodded with satisfaction. Coming out of the teacher's office, Kurumi slowly put away the smile on her face and sighed as if she was tired. Next, Kurumi will go to find the whereabouts of the second elf and temporarily leave here for a while. Thinking that she was about to leave here, Kurumi's heart was more or less worried. It's not that she didn't want to come to Lai-chan High School. It's also not that she didn't want to leave her classmates. From the beginning to the end, there was only one person who could make her feel reluctant. Her wine-red eyes flickered a few times. Kurumi couldn't help but look in the direction of the classroom. She wanted to see Wu Yen. At least she wanted to say goodbye. But she was afraid. After meeting Wu Yen, she would be reluctant to leave. Standing at the door of the teacher's office, Kurumi's beautiful eyes were filled with hesitation. In the end, she gave up. Anyway, it's not like we won't meet again. Regardless of whether she found the second sprite or not, or whether she resolved the confusion in her heart, she would still come back. After all, Kwang-san's life had long since merged with the only man who could move her heart. For the time being, I have to go back to my old self, Kurumi muttered. She then lifted her feet and walked towards the school gate. Walking on the sparsely populated street, Kurong 3 entered a small alley. She didn't stop until she reached the end of the alley where there wasn't a single trace of light. Then, she turned around and walked back. Era, are you not going to come out? The light and agile voice wantonly fluctuated in the narrow alley, spreading far and wide. Not long after, it stopped and returned to silence. But Kurumi kept a smile on her face. She stared straight ahead as if someone was standing right in front of her. In fact, that's the truth. Not far in front of Kurumi, there's a figure standing there. No, figure isn't the right word. To be more precise, it's a blurry image. If Kotori was here, she would recognize it. Because it's the shadow that gave Kotori the spirit crystal 5 years ago, turning her into a sprite. Phantom. Squinting his eyes, Kwang-san's smile rose again, looking ferocious and bloodthirsty. No one knew if Phantom could see Kurumi's expression. That blurry figure slightly shook. Then, a strange voice reverberated in the air. It was hard to tell whether it was a man or a woman, high or low. It had an inconceivable feeling. It was impossible to tell if the voice belonged to a man or a woman, high or low. When did you find out? Kurumi raised an eyebrow, her only exposed eye curved into a crescent moon shape. The moment I came out of the office. Hearing Kwang-san's words, the Phantom's blurry figure shook a few more times and spoke noisily. Then, why didn't you inform your husband Sama? I wanted to, but you would have left by then, right? Kurumi shrugged her shoulders. She looked at the Phantom with a bloody glint in her eyes. But, I admire your courage. You know he's in Lai-chan High, yet you still came here. Do you think you're a match for him? I don't know if I'm a match for him, the Phantom said, but I know you need me. Kwang-san's eyes narrowed. His body emitted a strong light that disappeared in a flash. When the light dimmed, a black and red spiritual equipment appeared on his body. Kurumi raised the gun in her hand and aimed at Phantom. Her golden eyes locked onto Phantom as she sneered. You don't think I'll betray him, do you? You won't. The Phantom paused for a moment. Someone as depraved as you will open your heart and accept someone? He. Kwang-san giggled strangely. Her laughter made people's hair stand on end. You don't understand his gentleness at all. How would you know how important he is to me? Phantom fell silent when she heard that. Seeing Phantom go silent, Kurumi was bored. She put away the gun in her hand and turned around. Just as she was about to leave, Phantom opened her mouth to speak. You've gained enough time from him to achieve your goal, right? Kwang-san's footsteps abruptly stopped. He froze on the spot and lowered his head. Every number on the Angel of Kurumi, the engraving emperor, contained the ability to manipulate time. These abilities would consume Kurumi's time every time they were used. Only the bullet of 11 and the bullet of 12 were slightly different. These two bullets would consume the same amount of time as an elf's life. That was why Kurumi needed to absorb the time of humans to replenish her life. She wanted to get enough time to fire the bullet of 12 that could send her target back to the past. She wanted to return to 30 years ago and kill the first elf. Now, the time she gained from Wu Yen was enough for her to return to 30 years ago and support her in killing the original elf. In other words, as long as Kurumi was willing, she could fulfill her wish at any time. I don't know what your goal is, but I know you want to shoot the bullet of 12, right? The Phantom's mocking voice entered Kurumi's ears. Don't you already have what you want? Why did you choose to stay by his side? Hearing Phantom's words, Kwang-san slowly turned around and looked forward. A gentle smile quietly appeared on her face. Because he said he didn't want me to disappear. After saying this, Kurumi turned around again and walked out of the alley, brushing past Phantom's figure. You better be prepared the next time you appear in front of me. He really wants to see you. I'm sure he'll be happy if I capture you and give you to him as a gift. Phantom seemed to have turned around as well. Her blurry figure flashed, and she looked at Kurumi, who was walking away, and suddenly said, You're right. The second elf was imprisoned by the Dem. Also, the Dem has his eyes on the person in your heart. Kurumi turned around and looked at the Phantom. However, the Phantom was already gone. All that was left was an empty alley. Kurumi smiled. Her smile was both happy and bloody. Chapter 1141. Not coming back? Wu Yen frowned as he listened to Kotori's voice on the other end of the line. What's wrong? Is there a problem with the negotiation? No, there's no problem with the negotiation. The display device and Kurumi's matter have been solved perfectly. They've already agreed to make the display device we need. They've also turned a blind eye to Kurumi's matter. It's going very smoothly. That's good to hear. Wu Yen felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. The main reason he returned to the Date Battle World was to obtain the display device that he planned to use to strengthen the Misaka sisters' CR unit. If he couldn't complete this task, it would be a real headache. As for Kurumi, she already got enough time from him, so she doesn't need to attack anyone else. She shouldn't be able to cause any trouble, so Wu Yen isn't too worried about that. Since everything is going well, why aren't you coming back? Wu Yen tilted his head in confusion. Don't tell me there's something troublesome and you want to take it all on yourself? It's a pity. Although I did plan to do so in the beginning, it was too late. But he didn't give me a chance. Kotori sighed with a hint of displeasure. It's just that it's almost time for the annual Round Table Conference to be held again. Instead of rushing back in a hurry, why don't we just finish the Round Table Conference here before going back? The so-called Round Table Conference was, in fact, a group formed by the high-ranking officers who founded Ratatosker. The chairman of the Round Table Conference was Woodman. Kotori was also a member of the Round Table Conference, and was appointed as the commander of Ratatosker. As for the rest of the council members, some of them were higher-ups of Yasgate Electronics. Some are supporters who share the same goal as the Round Table Conference. Their true identity is only known to the other members of the Round Table Conference. However, to say that they had the same aspirations was nothing more than words. Kotori's displeasure could be heard from her tone. Some of the people in the Round Table Conference In fact, she really hated it. This proves that some of the people in the Round Table Conference have bad intentions. However, on the surface, they were indeed supporting Ratatosker's operation. In Ratatosker, whether it was the display device needed for the elves or the operating funds, Ratatosker didn't have much money. Coterie, as the commander of Ratatosker, couldn't ignore the Round Table even if she hated this kind of person. Furthermore, while there were some who harbored evil intentions in the Round Table Conference, there were also some who truly advocated for saving the elves. No matter what, Coterie has to participate in the annual Round Table Conference. Wu Yen admired his sister. She was only a 15-year-old girl, yet she was able to become a council member and the commander of Ratatosker at such a young age. In a way, Coterie was even better than Shoujo Misaki. At the very least, Shoujo Misaki's wisdom is mostly due to her ability to control others' minds. Coterie, on the other hand, relied on her own ability to walk down this path, so how could she not be admired? I understand. I'll use the excuse that you're going to stay at your friend's house for a few days. Wu Yen nodded. In a few days, it's time to go on a study trip. Shiori is also worried about leaving you and Yoshino at home. Let Yoshino stay in Fraxinus for a few days. I'll tell Shiori that you brought Yoshino to your classmate's house. Let's do that. Coterie nodded in agreement. Then, she remembered something and said, I've put Shinzuki in charge of Ratatosker. Contact him if you need anything. Shinzuki? Wu Yen scratched his cheek. Can he do it? Don't worry. Don't look at him like that. When he gets serious, he will give you a scare. Coterie said. Wu Yen couldn't help but shrug. She sounded like she's up to no good. Wu Yen had a few question marks in his head. He shrugged helplessly. All right, I'll contact him if I need anything. Don't worry. We still have Shinzuki, Yatsuki, and Ling Yin. Coterie pursed her lips. Even if something goes wrong, it'll be because of you. Ahaha. Wu Yen chuckled awkwardly. I'll take it that you're being arrogant. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. I'm not joking. You need to be careful. Coterie's tone turned serious. The higher-ups here have begun to take notice of you. Some of them even think that you are more dangerous than the elves. If you cause any trouble, and those guys who only know how to talk big and are extremely afraid of death find out, it will be very troublesome. Is that so? Wu Yen raised an eyebrow and his lips curled into a grin. Well, you don't have to worry about that. When have you ever seen me suffer? That's right. That's why I'm worried. Coterie smiled bitterly. Anyways, you need to be careful. I feel like something's going to happen. I know. Wu Yen shook his head. I'll be careful. Just take care of yourself. All right. Coterie wasn't sure if Wu Yen took her advice seriously, so she shook her head. That's it then. If something urgent happens, just call this number. This is the emergency line. You're allowed to pick it up even during the roundtable conference. All right, that's it then. Leaving these words, he hung up the call. Looking at the phone in his hand, he narrowed his eyes as if deep in thought. Something's going to happen? Not sure if he thought of something good or not, Wu Yen had a playful look in his eyes. Something is going to happen. Shrugging his shoulders, he turned around and walked into the classroom. The moment he entered the classroom, a voice filled with excitement rang out. Shoujo! Toka sprinted towards Wu Yen, and she started waving her arms and legs while yelling at Wu Yen. Sensei said she's going to assign rooms for a study trip. Shoujo, let's be a team. 10 Fragrance's crisp voice caused the classroom, which was still in a noisy state a second ago, to quiet down. Then, a series of meaningful gazes swept over one after another. The smile on Wu Yan's face froze as he listened to the whispers around him. A drop of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead as he quickly rejected her with a righteous tone. No! 10 Fragrances puffed up her cheeks in dissatisfaction. Why? This. Wu Yen wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and smiled. Look, if you're in the same room as me, what about Shiori? She'll want to be in the same room as you. I see. Toka nodded in realization. Then, she heard a calm voice. Don't worry. Tashiichi Origami stood up from her seat and hugged Shiori, who was beside her. I'll be in the same group as Shiori. Sigh, this time, it was Shiori's turn to have a drop of sweat on his forehead. Shiori's face turned pale when she thought of the tragedy that happened when she went shopping with Tashiichi Origami. I can't be alone with Origami. As such a thought flashed through her mind, Shoujo called out to him. Then Toka, you can come too. It's decided then. Before Toka and Tashiichi Origami could say anything, Wu Yen made the decision. At this moment, Teacher Shoujo, who was standing on the podium, seemed to have thought of something and took out a piece of paper. Oh right, I almost forgot to tell everyone. The destination of this trip has changed. Huh? All of a sudden, the entire class's bewildered voices overlapped perfectly, reverberating in the air. There were only a few days left before the trip. If the destination was changed now, wouldn't all the preparation be wasted? Shori-sensei smiled as if she expected this. Don't worry, the destination is Homie Island. It's very close, so we don't need to prepare much. Hearing this, the classroom became noisy once again. No one noticed that Wu Yen, who was standing at the back of the classroom, had a small grin on his face. Chapter 1142. Tiangong City Airport. Students, please gather according to your class. In the plaza of the airport, Teacher Shoujo and the other teachers of the other classes raised their hands and gave orders. They let the students who came to Zen High School to participate in the study trip line up according to their classes and get ready to board the plane at any time to set off for Hiroshima. Shiori pulled Toka, who kept looking around curiously towards the queue. Wu Yen carried a travel bag full of clothes and daily necessities as he walked behind the two of them. He looked around the airport and tapped on his unknown earpiece. Is it really okay? Ask Fraxinus to follow them to Arami Island. That's necessary. Ling Yin's tired voice rang out softly in the earpiece. After all, the travel agency that supports your study trip this time has a background that makes me a little worried. Oh? Wu Yen stopped and he grinned at Ling Yin. Did you guys notice it? Ling Yin, who was talking to Wu Yen in Fraxinus' command room, flinched when she heard this. So you already knew. Well, vaguely. Wu Yen pursed his lips and continued to follow Toka and Shiori. Is it Dem? Dem. At this time, Shina's voice came from the earpiece. Her voice was full of surprise and confusion. Could it be that this study trip has something to do with Dem? I can't tell if it's related to Dem or not. Wu Yen shrugged. However, when I went to ask Teacher Little Zhu why the destination of the trip was changed, she said that a travel agency called Cross had contacted the school. They said that they wanted to promote their company's tourism business and provided the expenses and location of the trip for free on the condition that the photos used in the promotional brochure were taken. Free? Yu's voice came from the command room. This is really generous. You can go on a study trip for free just by taking a few photos. No wonder Zen High changed their destination. But there was not the slightest bit of relief in Zhen's voice. She spoke again. What does this have to do with Dem? Don't you know? Is that really? Wu Yen said in surprise. That travel agency called Cross or something is a subsidiary of Dem. A subsidiary of Dem? Zhen Na and Yeyue both froze at the same time. It's already suspicious enough to provide the cost and location of the study trip for free, but it's still more or less reasonable. However, since the target is the property of that Dem, then, if it's to promote tourism, wouldn't it be better to choose a more famous place? I don't think Lichon High is a famous school. As the target of the tourism promotion, it's not very likely that they would choose to come to Zen High School. Wu Yen added in a joking manner. Of course, it's also possible that there are other factors or it's a random selection. Maybe Lai-chan High School just happened to be selected. However, since it's a company under DEM, it's always necessary to be a little vigilant. You're right. Shina and Yu nodded. The DEM is a dangerous entity that targets elves. To Ratatosker, the DEM is an archenemy. Coincidentally, Toka is also in Lai-chan High School. Wu Yen was mistaken for an elf until now. Now that the DEM has a hand in some of Lai-chan High School's affairs, it's necessary to be on high alert. But I don't think we need Fraxinus to go with us to Japan, do we? Wu Yen said helplessly. Wouldn't that be making a big deal out of nothing? Just in case. Just in case. If something urgent happens, we can go there immediately. Ling Yin explained calmly. She muttered in dissatisfaction. Initially, I wanted to act as Ratatosker's contact person as a teacher, but the commander's sister has seen me before when she was traveling to the hot spring. If I follow her, it'll definitely arouse suspicion. If that happens, it'll be hard for me to explain to the commander. Alright, don't worry too much. If there's an emergency, even if I can't handle it, you guys can't handle it either. Wu Yen shook his head. All in all, please pay attention to your surroundings. If you notice anything suspicious, you can decide what to do. As for the matters on the ground, I'll take care of them. Understood. Ling Yin replied. If it's not necessary, please don't remove Toka's seal. It'll be troublesome if Toka's psychic waves are detected. I don't think that's necessary. Wu Yen scratched his cheeks in an uncertain manner. I'll take care of it. Shina, you wait for orders in Fraxinus. Yes, sir. Shina and Yu answered in a strong voice. Wu Yen nodded in satisfaction. Then, he remembered something. Oh right, didn't Kotori say that Shinzuki is in charge of Ratatosker? Why didn't I hear his voice? He's lying on the commander's seat right now, Ling Yin said in an emotionless voice. He said he wants to use his body temperature to retain the commander's precious scent and warmth. Alright, pretend I didn't ask. 10 minutes later, the students of Lai-chan High School were all lined up neatly with bags in their hand. They were waiting to board the plane and head to the destination of their study trip, Hashima. Alright, students, please be quiet. Teacher Shoujo stepped forward and clapped her hands, attracting the attention of the group of students who were discussing their study trip. Then, she smiled and stepped aside. Let me introduce you to someone. As Soju-sensei stepped aside, a tall girl appeared in front of everyone. She has light blonde hair that fluttered in the wind. The rest of her hair was tied up behind her head. She's wearing a reporter's outfit with a camera hanging around her neck. Her facial features are different from Asians. Her skin is snow-white as if she came from a foreign country. She exudes an aura that doesn't fit in but doesn't give off a sense of distance. Only the sharper ones like Toka and Tokichi Origami noticed that this girl has a unique aura. Wu Yan's wine-red eyes flashed with a peculiar glint when he saw the girl. He looked at her with a playful and contemptuous gaze. This is the photographer sent by the travel agency. Soju-sensei introduced the photographer to the students. Since this study trip is sponsored by the cross-travel agency for free, in order to provide help to the travel agency, the photographer will record and shoot the process of your trip. Therefore, if you are photographed, please cooperate and don't cause any trouble. Just call me Irene. The photographer named Elaine smiled and bowed politely. I look forward to your guidance on this trip. Thank you for your guidance. The group of students responded one after another. Good. Soju-sensei nodded happily. It's about time to board the plane. Remember to bring your belongings. Don't leave them behind. Yes. Irene touched the camera in her hand when she saw the students talking about their belongings. She glanced at the students and stopped at two people. Toka was chatting happily with Shiori. She looked at Wu Yen, who was looking at her with a faint smile. Irene's pupils constricted, and then she looked away as if nothing had happened. A trace of vigilance rose in her heart. Could it be that the person who looked like their devil knew his identity? No, I shouldn't have met him before. She turned to look at Wu Yen again. That half-smile he had on his face was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there is an ordinary male student with a helpless smile on his face, chatting with Shiori and Toka about something. Seeing this, even Irene couldn't help but feel doubtful. Just now, was that just an illusion? Is that guy really the Red Devil? Chapter 1143. High up in the sky, in a plane flying at high speed. Well. Leaning on the window and looking at the endless ocean below, Toka's dreamy eyes fluctuated with extraordinary splendor. She seemed very excited. This is the ocean? It's really big. Seeing Toka's unusually happy expression, Shiori unconsciously also showed a smile on her face. Don't worry, we'll be able to play at the beach soon, so Toka, if you're too excited, be careful that you don't have the energy to swim. Swim. 10 Incense narrowed her eyes in anticipation. She hurriedly sat down in her seat. You're right, can't be too excited. If you're too excited, you won't have the energy to swim. Calm down. She muttered to herself to calm down, and she did indeed calm down. However, because she was too calm, her squinted eyes began to blink tiredly. Not long after, she closed her eyes. Her head also tilted to the side, and she fell into a deep slumber. Really? Shiori helplessly shook her head. Her eyes couldn't help but show a doting expression. She flicked Toka's bangs and softly muttered, "Good night." All of a sudden, a cold gaze pierced from Shiori's side to her back, causing her to feel a chill down her spine. The doting smile on her face also froze up. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Shiori turned her head with an uneasy expression and looked to the other side of her. Then, Tokichi Origami's calm face and cold gaze were imprinted in her eyes. Looking at Toka Origami's cold gaze, Shiori embarrassedly smiled and carefully asked a question. "What's wrong?" "Origami classmate." Toka Origami didn't say anything. She stared at Shiori, until a while later, her eyes closed, head tilted. Like Toka, she seems to have fallen asleep. Shiori's mouth twitched. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Toka Origami, who was sleeping, seemed to be a bit dissatisfied. She rubbed her head against Shiori's body. That appearance looked strange, but Shiori, who already had some understanding of Toka Origami, unwillingly understood. At that moment, Shoujo could only sigh. She also stroked Toka Origami's bangs. She forced a smile. "Good night." Yuichi Origami's expression finally looked better. Not far behind Toka, Tobarama Origami, and Shiori, Irene raised the camera in her hand, adjusted the focus, and aimed it at Toka and the other two. To be more precise, it was aimed at the sleeping 10 Incense. After a few clicks, the photos were taken one after another. After pressing the shutter countless times, Irene put down the camera in her hand and stared at the sleeping Toka with a frown. This time, Irene's mission wasn't just to investigate 10 fragrances. She also had to investigate Wu Yen and Kurumi, who looked very similar to elves. However, since the beginning of her trip, she had seen 10 Incense and Wu Yen, but not Kurumi. "What's going on?" Irene muttered to herself with a frown. "Why don't I see Nightmare?" As soon as she said this, a magnetic voice rang in Irene's ears. "Nightmare? Who is that?" Alarmed, Irene abruptly turned her head to look behind her. As she did so, a face with a mysterious smile entered her field of vision, causing her heart to skip a beat. "Is there another foreigner on the plane like Miss Irene?" Wu Yen blinked his eyes and he laughed in a weird manner. "The foreigner with the name Nightmare sure has a personality." No. Irene tried to suppress her wildly beating heart. She tilted her head at Wu Yen in confusion. "You are?" "Me." Wu Yen shrugged and smiled. "Miss Irene, don't you know me? Someone took a photo of me just now." Irene's eyes trembled. She forced a smile. "Is that so? I'm sorry, It's a job requirement. Ma, looks like being a photographer isn't easy after all. Wu Yen looked at Irene straight in the eye. He pointed at the seat beside him, as if he's trying to strike up a conversation with Irene. Can I sit here? Hearing this, Irene subconsciously wanted to refuse, but when she thought that it would be easier to observe, she nodded her head. Of course. Thank you very much. Wu Yen bowed like a noble. He sat down beside Irene and he handed her one of the 2 bottles of drinks he's been holding. If you don't mind, please have this, tea, thank you. Irene took the drink from Wu Yan's hand with an unnatural expression. She didn't open it, she just held it in her hand. Most girls wouldn't eat or drink anything given to them by a guy they met for the first time. After all, she didn't know if the guy was up to no good. As for Irene, apart from this reason, there was also another reason. The one who gave her the drink was most likely an elf. Under such circumstances, how could he possibly drink a drink from the other party? Wu Yen didn't notice this, but he opened his drink and took a sip. He looked straight ahead and suddenly spoke. Isn't Toka cute? She didn't expect Wu Yen to say something like that. She asked out of reflex. Why do you ask? Isn't it? Wu Yen looked at Irene in surprise. Miss Irene, haven't you been taking pictures of Toka? Isn't it because she's cute? Irene's heart almost skipped a beat. Her originally unnatural expression became even more unnatural. She nodded perfunctorily in a slightly flustered state. Well, that's true, isn't that a little too perfunctory? Wu Yen bitterly smiled as he took a sip of his drink. Then, he leaned back in his chair. Miss Irene, you've been taking pictures of me and Toka since we got on the plane. I thought you took a fancy to us and wanted to use our pictures as the cover of the travel agency's brochure. Hearing this, Irene's grip on the camera tightened. Even her breathing quickened a little as she forced a smile. I'm sorry. You and that lady have a unique temperament, so I couldn't help but take a few more pictures. Did I cause you trouble? Trouble? What a nuisance! Wu Yen tapped the cold surface of the can with his finger and chuckled. Of course it's not troublesome to take pictures now. But if you take them back, we'll be in trouble. Irene's eyes wavered, her smile became more and more feeble. It's just for the travel agency's brochure. It won't cause you any trouble, is that so? Wu Yen glanced at Irene. Irene thought she was hallucinating. Wu Yen grinned at her with a smile that didn't look like a smile on his face. I hope that's the case. After all, Miss Irene seems to be very smart, but it's easy for her to make some mistakes. Confused? Irene looked at herself in confusion. Wu Yen raised an eyebrow. Don't you know? Wu Yen tapped his ear with a faint smile. For example, women usually wear headphones. If they don't want people to see them, they'll cover their ears with their hair. Miss Irene, you didn't notice, what? Irene immediately touched her ear. When she touched her wireless headset, her heart beat faster again. This is the wireless headset she used to keep in touch with the team that came with her. And Miss Irene. Wu Yen narrowed his eyes as if he didn't see Irene's panicked expression. In the beginning, although I said 10 Fragrances is very cute, I didn't tell you who 10 Fragrances is. The blood drained from Irene's face, and she became abnormally pale. Haha, Miss Irene is surprisingly easy to bully. Wu Yen smiled and stood up. No, before Miss Irene hates me, it seems like I have to retreat as soon as possible. Wu Yen waved at Irene and walked away with the can in his hand. Irene held the camera in her hand and looked at Wu Yan's back with uncertainty. Chapter 1144. Between the Aizu Archipelago and the Ogasawara Archipelago, there is an island with a total area of about 70 square kilometers. Homei Island. 30 years ago, there was a period of time when spacequakes happened very frequently. Even this place was affected by spacequakes. A large part of the northern part of the island was hollowed out. From the middle of the island to the outside, it became an empty island sea. It looked very desolate. It was only in recent years that Huamei Island was redeveloped and turned into a sightseeing island with both scenery and entertainment. In this respect, Huamei Island and Tiangong City have a very similar background. After all, Tiangong City used to be a ruin because of frequent spacequakes. Later it was redeveloped into a residential area. Like other redeveloped areas, Huamei Island had also been perfectly planned and organized, and a perfect disaster prevention policy had been implemented. In terms of measures to deal with space earthquakes, it might be a little weaker than Tiangong City, but it was not much weaker. Moreover, the coast was completely cut off because of spacequakes, like a crescent moon suspended in the ocean. It formed a precious and beautiful scenery, attracting a lot of tourists. Whether local or foreign, people came to Huamei Island for sightseeing almost every day. Perhaps it was a little disrespectful to the victims who had lost their lives because of the spacequake. But in fact, Huamei Island did have the opportunity to gradually become prosperous and become a tourist attraction because of spacequake. And the free study trip sponsored by Cross Travel Agency is the destination of this island. The plane carrying the students and teachers of Lai Chan High School gradually landed on the crescent-shaped island. It didn't stop until it arrived at an airport. Not long after, the preparations to get off the plane were quickly completed. One by one, students in uniforms and teachers in casual clothes got off the plane and stood in the airport. They looked around. There was a bit of excitement on their faces. Taking a deep breath of the slightly cold air, Wu Yen couldn't help but praise while carrying a travel bag. Such fresh air, it smells cool even to the throat. It's the best place to travel in the summer. Indeed. Shiori also took a breath of the air. There was a faint surprise on her face. Originally, because the destination was too close, I didn't have much expectation. I didn't think it would be such a good place. Coming to this study trip was the right choice. Why do you all look so happy? Toka wrinkled her nose and sniffed the air with all her might. There's no smell at all. There's also a very, very strange smell. That's probably the smell of the sea. Wu Yen laughed and rubbed Toka's head. Don't smell fresh air like food, you idiot. I'm not an idiot, Toka retorted. Astria is an idiot. Astria? Shiori was taken aback. She asked in confusion. Who is Astria? Astria is. She is an idiot. Seeing as Toka is about to explain to Shiori, Wu Yen interrupted her. He pushed the two of them, and they walked towards the rest of the party. It's time to gather. Hurry up. I know, don't push me, HKA? HKA. Don't be so calculative. Let's go quickly, seriously. While the three of them were pushing and shoving each other, Irene got off the plane. She looked at Wu Yen and Toka as she pressed down on one of her ears. At the same time, in the sky above Huamei Island, the clouds that were gathered together suddenly flowed to the sides as if they were cut open by something. The soft cotton clouds flowed in the direction of the flow and drew a rather large frame, proving that there was something over there. As a matter of fact, there are indeed some things there. It's a humongous object. In a space that was invisible to the naked eye, a giant airship that was dark red in color and shaped like a cobra's head was floating above the clouds. Against the dense air pressure, it parted the clouds and slowly moved forward. The name of this airship was Albald, and it was one of the few large airships manufactured by the DM company. In order to support Irene and help her capture the elves at any time, Westcott didn't hesitate to send out this airship and let it listen to Irene's orders. Once Irene confirmed that the target was the elves, then this Albard would launch a fierce attack on Orimi Island. The executive force that has been keeping in touch with Elaine is on standby in this Albard. In Albard, a middle-aged man sitting on the captain's seat looked at the screen showing Wu Yen and Toka. He rubbed his beard, as if he was thinking of something. They're the targets this time? Isn't it just a brat and a little girl? Are they really fairies? If fairies can be judged by their appearance, we wouldn't have to work so hard. The moment the middle-aged man, who seemed to be the captain, finished his words, a loudspeaker sounded in the surroundings. It's the voice of DNM's second executive department head, Irene. Fairies have all kinds of strange abilities. They can hide their psychic waves and maintain a certain degree of appearance. It's stupid to use psychic wave detectors to identify fairies. Hearing Irene's blunt and impolite words, the captain of Albald chuckled and shrugged. Is that so? Thank you for your reminder, executive department head. Hearing the captain's indifferent tone from the headset, Irene frowned slightly, and her voice became cold. Anyway, stay alert. Don't lose sight of those two. The captain's eyes turned vicious. He looked at Irene's image on the screen and felt displeased. As the world's strongest magician, Irene's strength is unimaginable. However, the captain is very displeased with Irene. He hasn't seen Irene's strength with his own eyes. Just the fact that he has to obey the orders of a little girl who is old enough to be his daughter is enough to make him feel displeased. That's why he's always treated Irene's orders with a perfunctory attitude. Of course, to avoid being punished for failing the mission, the captain won't let his emotions control him. He'll still carry out the orders he needs to carry out. For example, now. Then, what should we do? Yes. That's right. Irene pondered for a moment before issuing the order. First, cut off the radio signal on Homie Island. At least make sure no one can stop us. Understood. The captain nodded expressionlessly. He waved at the crew below. Activate the hindrance domain. Cut off the radio signal. Yes, sir. A series of overlapping responses echoed in the air. Then, below the captain's seat, a group of Albert's crew members began to operate the computer. After a while, a thin layer of fog-like barrier shrouded the entire island. It was hidden in the void, and no one could see it. Homie Island's overall area is 70 square kilometers. It's able to activate the domain on the entire island. The scale alone is incomparable to AST. With this hindrance domain, other than Irene's special communication device, all communication between the island and outside will be cut off. In other words, no matter what happens on the island, AST won't be able to detect anything even if there's a spacequake. Homie Island will become a place where the Dem can do whatever they want. The hindrance domain has been activated. The radio signal has been cut off. The captain reported word by word and casually suggested, "Do we need to send out the Bandersnatch?" Hearing this, Irene fell silent for a moment before speaking in a deep voice. "Have all the Bandersnatch on standby on Homie Island." "What?" The captain, who was just casually saying it, couldn't help but be shocked. "All the Bandersnatch?" "Don't doubt your ears." Irene looked up at Wu Yan's receding figure. Her lips curled into an ugly smile. "If I don't do this, I won't feel at ease." Chapter 1145. Fraxinus is in the sky above Komei Island. Captain! Captain! Standing on the edge of the command platform, Zhen Na kept shouting into the communication device in front of him. This scene had been going on for more than 10 minutes. However, no matter how loud she shouted, Wu Yan's voice didn't come out of the loudspeaker. She frowned as she looked at Ling Yin and Yiyu. She sighed and shook her head. "It's still not working. I can't contact the captain. The radio signal doesn't seem to be able to reach Hume Island." Ling Yin answered calmly as she operated a sophisticated instrument. "Looks like someone is interfering with the radio signal transmission on Komei Island." "Someone?" Yiyu was slightly taken aback. Then, her eyes narrowed. "Is it Dem?" "Dem." Hearing the name of the organization he used to belong to, Shinna's face showed some disgust, but he still nodded. "Indeed, other than Dem, I can't think of anyone else who has the ability to interfere with Ratatosker's radio signal." "Vice Commander Shinzuki." Night Moon turned around and looked at Kyuhei, who was still rubbing his head against the commander's desk. She hesitated for a moment and asked, "What should we do?" "Well, if it's the commander's brother, then we'll be fine. Even without our support, they would still be more active and safe than anyone else, Kanazuki Kuhei said nonchalantly. Many of Ratatosker's members were speechless. Shina, Yu, and Ling In were the only ones who noticed that Shinzuki Kuhei's careless and unreliable words were the most accurate analysis of the situation. The three of them looked at each other. Yu asked Shinzuki Kuhei again. Are we just going to wait here? Well. Shinzuki Kuhei rubbed his chin and muttered. The commander's brother is strong. He doesn't need our support. However, the commander's sister and Toka are still on Huame Island. No matter how strong the commander's brother is, the two of them might be exposed to danger. Hearing this, the three of them were convinced that Kanazuki Kuhei was not someone to be judged by his appearance. As such, their faces were all tense. Deputy Commander Shen Wei. Night Moon nodded. Please give the order. Hearing this, Shen Wei stood up respectfully and waved his hand. It was only then that he looked like a deputy commander. Switch the mode of the radio signal. Try to bypass the signal blockage. Compress all the radio waves into one line. Target Itoshido's wireless circuit. Yes, Miss Koi. After giving the order, Kanazuki Kuhei returned to his casual self. He said to Shina, just in case, please go to Hiroshima Island and secretly protect Toka and the commander's sister. That's exactly what I want. Shina smiled and jumped off the platform, running outside. Kanazuki Kuhei groaned in disgust after Shina left. He slumped on the platform and rubbed his face against Kotori's seat. Originally, I wanted to directly remove the invisible camouflage and let the Dem notice us. Then we would have a big battle. This way, when the commander comes back, he will definitely punish me severely. How happy would that be? The members of Ratatosker, who were impressed by Kanazuki Kuhei's quick and decisive orders, were now sweating profusely. They no longer expected anything from Kanazuki Kuhei. At the same time, on Huame Island, using the surrounding buildings and trees as cover, Irene reported her whereabouts and gave some orders through her earpiece. She kept her eyes on Wu Yen, Toka, and Shiori, who were chatting and laughing as they walked away. She carefully moved her feet. At this moment, the students of Raichan High School are being guided by the teachers towards the information center of Himejima. Maybe it's because they didn't get to go sightseeing, so the students are a bit listless. Only Toka, who is walking at the back of the group, is looking around curiously, causing Wu Yen and Shiori to be full of smiles as well. When they were about to arrive at the archive, Wu Yen, who was walking at the back of the group, suddenly stopped. He said something to Shiori and Toka. After the two girls nodded, he smiled and waved his hand. Then, he walked towards the forest. Seeing this, Irene was shocked. She glanced at Toka, who was following the group, and then looked at Wu Yen, who walked into the forest. She hesitated for a moment before speaking into her earpiece. Albald, you guys are in charge of monitoring the girl who is suspected to be Princess. I'll follow the boy who is suspected to be Red Devil. Yes. Executive Director. Irene nodded heavily. She tightened her grip on her camera and moved her feet. She followed Wu Yen from afar and walked towards the forest. In a corner of Huame Island, there was a forest that wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It surrounded the area with the most people, and was distributed in an irregular circle. This forest was one of the scenic spots on Huame Island. Although it wasn't famous, it attracted the attention of some tourists due to the rare species of trees that could occasionally be found here. As for the forest itself, it wasn't very dense. In fact, it was a little sparse. Of course, the sparse trees were only relative to other forests. For ordinary people, this forest was enough to be a good place to play hide and seek. Therefore, Irene couldn't help but boldly pull a distance away from Wu Yen. She used the surrounding trees to hide herself and followed behind Wu Yen unhurriedly. In front of her, Wu Yen passed through one tree after another. He didn't admire the rare species of trees, nor did he pay attention to the surrounding scenic spots. He walked as if he had no destination at all. Seeing this scene, Irene's heart was filled with doubts. However, she still followed closely behind Wu Yan. Just like now, there was no outsider present. It was very likely that Red Devil would reveal a circle. At that time, Irene would be able to confirm that Wu Yan was an elf. Just as Irene was thinking about this, Wu Yan suddenly stopped in front of her. The voice that disturbed Irene's mood on the plain echoed in the empty forest. I don't know how long it will take me to walk like this. Let's stop here. As if talking to himself, Wu Yan turned around. His wine-red eyes stared straight at Irene. A playful smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Still not planning to come out? Miss Irene. I've been discovered. Hiding behind a tree, Irene's heart suddenly trembled. She saw the smile on Wu Yan's face and her palms involuntarily sweated. She took a deep breath and suppressed her emotions. She walked out and stared straight at Wu Yan. You discovered me long ago. That's why you deliberately walked into the forest, right? If you insist on an explanation. Wu Yan shrugged. Well, that's the general situation, is that so? Irene's expression turned cold. Can I ask, how did you find me? Interesting. That's an interesting question. Wu Yan couldn't help but chuckle. Miss Irene, I was right when I said you're a little muddle-headed. Crossing his arms in front of his chest, Wu Yan laughed as he explained. I already pointed out a few of your flaws on the plane. These flaws are more than enough to prove that you're not a normal photographer. You also have other motives. Do you really think I wouldn't do something to you? Irene abruptly raised her head. What did you do to me? Well, don't be nervous. Wu Yan smirked. It's just a little detection magic that allows me to sense your location. It won't be long before it disappears. Magic. Irene raised her eyebrows in confusion. Yes, magic. Wu Yan's smile slowly faded. His expression was indifferent, but it gave Irene a strange sense of oppression. It's different from the fake magic that you magicians recreate with the help of the display device. It's real magic. You. Irene's eyes narrowed. Chapter 1146. His voice echoed in her ears. She felt like she fell into an ice cave. Her body temperature dropped at an unimaginable speed. She even felt a chill in her heart. Looking at Wu Yan's nonchalant expression, Irene more or less understood what's going on. His identity had been exposed from the very beginning. The man in front of her not only has magical powers, but he also knows her identity. Otherwise, why would he say something like magician that belongs to the combat personnel who control the CR unit? Perhaps he had already been exposed to them. Even secret information such as the executive director of the DEM might be known by them. Thinking of this, Irene felt that her investigation along the way was like a clown's, and her face suddenly turned ugly. You really are the elf. The Red Devil. The Red Devil? Wu Yan frowned and scratched his face. Is that my identification name? Who gave me such an ugly name? Seeing Wu Yan's nonchalant attitude, Irene's ugly face faded away. It was replaced by a cold and emotionless face. You just have to answer me. Are you an elf or not? Oh. Wu Yan raised his eyebrows and smirked. At this point in time, even if I don't admit I'm an elf, you won't believe me, right? Wu Yan shrugged. Just think of me as an elf. If that's the case, all of you who have been pursuing fairies should be very happy. Hearing this, Irene once again confirmed her guess. It seems like you already know my true identity. Irene threw the camera in her hand to the ground and narrowed her eyes. If that's the case, please give up on your futile resistance and come with me. Is this the first thing you say after coming to the conclusion that I'm an elf? Wu Yan shook his head in disappointment. I was expecting you to say some unexpected lines, Miss Elaine. How boring. So, you're not going to cooperate. Irene's eyes also turned cold. She was different from her behavior at the beginning. Now, she was emitting a sharp aura. Even the air around her became a lot thicker. Are you finally serious? Wu Yen had an amused expression when he sensed the change. He even praised her for it. As expected of the world's strongest magician. You even know that? Irene's cold expression turned gloomy. How much do you know? I know. I know everything I can, Irene said in a half-joking, half-serious tone. Wu Yen pretended to be deep in thought before he laughed out loud. For example, your identity, Ms. Irene, or that annoying guy from Westcott. Even Ike knows about it? Irene gritted her teeth and took a few steps back. Forget it. As for why you know so much, I'll interrogate you when we get back to the company. That's not a bad idea. Wu Yen closed his eyes as if he's thinking about something. He opened his eyes after a while. He opened his eyes and smiled. How about this, Ms. Irene? Let's play a game. A game? Irene blinked. Yes, a game. Wu Yen opened his arms as if to show his sincerity. He looked at Irene with an open mouth. The rules of the game are like this. If you can beat me, I'll go with you to meet Will Scott. Alice's eyes narrowed and she asked in a deep voice, Then what if I lose? Lose? Well, I lost. Wu Yen rubbed his chin and he looked up at the sky with a grin. There seems to be one of your DNM's airships up there. You sure know everything, huh? Irene looked at Wu Yen with an expressionless face. And then? Even if it's a DM, there shouldn't be many airships of this size. You'll feel bad if it's destroyed, right? You. Irene held her breath. Could it be? Have you guessed it? Wu Yen grinned mischievously. He pointed at the sky with his finger. If you lose, I'll be responsible for sending that scrap metal to the recycling station. Irene stared at the grinning Wu Yen and for some reason, her heart started beating faster. For the first time in her life, she was afraid. No matter how strong the man was, he had everything under his control. It was as if he could predict the future. She couldn't help but fear him. Sensing this fear, Irene clenched her fist. Then what about the game? That goes without saying. Wu Yen looked at Irene with an exaggerated look of surprise. He continued with a condescending tone. Since Miss Irene is the most powerful magician in the world, of course, I have to defeat you in your area of expertise. That's the most interesting thing, isn't it? Hearing this, the fear in Irene's heart was replaced by a trace of anger. Are you looking down on me? Why would I? Wu Yen narrowed his eyes and looked at Irene mockingly. It's just that Ms. Irene seems to think that no one in this world can defeat you. That's why I want to use my real strength to wake you up. So that you can recognize your own ignorance and insignificance. The anger in Irene's heart was easily ignited. Bzzz. Specks of golden light suddenly converged from all directions and condensed on Irene's body, completely covering her body inside. In a situation where even the air is trembling, the light that enveloped Irene's body is beginning to twist and stretch. When the light dissipated, Irene looked completely different from before. The clothes on his body were replaced by a tight-fitting and smooth uniform. His limbs were wrapped in mechanical armor, with parts scattered all over his body. On his back were mechanical wings that looked like wings, and on his back were two sword-shaped equipment that were slender and oversized. The display device for personal combat, the CR unit. It was because of this equipment that an individual could obtain power that far exceeded that of an ordinary person, and become a special race that was limited to this world. A magician, in the past, AST, relied on such equipment to fight against the elves. However, unlike AST's equipment, Irene's CR unit was not only white in color, but its design was even more unique. It's definitely not an ordinary CR unit. Oh, you're angry. Wu Yen teased Irene as he sized up the CR unit on her body. This CR unit seems to be a lot stronger than the AST set. Don't compare my Pendragon to the AST, that's more common. Irene pulled out the sword-shaped equipment on her back. A laser beam shot out and pointed at Wu Yen. My Pendragon is a CR unit specially made by Dem. It's the most suitable CR unit for me. Comparing AST, which can be made by spending a certain amount of money, with it is the biggest insult. My apologies then. Wu Yen didn't sound apologetic at all. He stomped on the ground and he leaped into the air. He shot into the sky and he shot towards the horizon. Trying to escape? She tightened her grip on her lightsaber, and the wings on her back released a burst of thrust. Under Irene's control, she chased after Wu Yen and flew into the sky as well. Like two meteors, the two of them drew a smooth trajectory, one in front and one behind. They shot up into the boundless sky like chasing the stars and the moon. Only when they reached the clouds did the two of them reveal their figures. They floated above the clouds, facing each other from a distance. Looking at Irene, who was aiming her laser sword at him, Wu Yen laughed. He waved his hand and Neotono, no Shauna, came out of the gate of Babylon and landed on his palm. He then pointed it downwards at an angle. Let's start our game. Chapter 1147. Let's begin our game. Hearing this, Irene's delicate face flashed with sharpness. No matter what kind of existence you are in this world, no one can defeat me. Irene waved the laser sword in her hand and pulled it to her waist. She held the sword with both hands and rushed out with the push of the ejector on her back. Wherever she passed, the sky filled with clouds was torn open. In a sonic boom, she rushed to Wu Yen like a hot knife through butter. Clang! Along with the crisp sound of metal clashing, a ferocious chi burst out from the center of the collision. Instantly, the clouds within a radius of more than 10 meters were blown away. It was as if something had exploded here, leaving a hole in the sky. Quite the strength. Wu Yen held Niandan Shana and looked up at the laser sword that was less than 10 centimeters away from his head. He gritted his teeth and swung Niandan Shana with all his might. Clang! The nimble blade landed heavily on the laser lightsaber. Immediately after, a ferocious force that no one could match was unleashed on the laser lightsaber. In terms of body size, Niandan Shana was the weaker one, but the laser lightsaber in Irene's hand was almost cut in half. It wasn't that Niandan Shana didn't have the ability to cut the laser sword. Before it could be chopped apart, the laser sword, together with Irene herself, was blasted away by the force of a mountain. Irene once again tore apart the clouds in her path. It wasn't until she flew out a few hundred meters that she had the strength to adjust her body. With the push of the ejector on her back, she once again floated in the air. Her hand holding the sword couldn't stop trembling. She looked at Wu Yen with eyes filled with shock. Irene's special CR unit, Pandaragon, although it wasn't developed in terms of strength, it could still block the charge of any elf. It could even barely block the charge of an airship. But even so, his opponent was Wu Yen. He was still at an absolute disadvantage, and his laser lightsaber was almost cut in half. How could that elf be so strong? How could Irene know that she was a true ancestor? Wu Yan's physical strength was above that of ordinary demons, coupled with the purification and strengthening of the magical pond water. He had already reached a level where even the beastmen who excelled in physical strength could not match him. The power she had seen was but a drop in the ocean. What's wrong? Game over? Wu Yan's mocking voice echoed clearly in her ears as he looked at Irene, who was a few hundred meters away. If this is the strength of the world's most powerful magician, then I'm sure you'll be able to defeat him. That would be too disappointing. I'll make you regret saying that. Irene's face turned cold, and with a low shout, the laser lightsaber in her hand vibrated, and then traces of golden arcs flashed like electric arcs, and in the sizzling sound, a rich and strange energy burst out. Wu Yen furrowed his brow and mumbled when he felt the vast amount of energy coming at him. That's magic power? That's right. The energy flashing on Irene's laser lightsaber was the unique energy source used to power the display device in this world, magic power. With a shout, Irene held the laser lightsaber in her hand, and her whole body was wrapped in the airflow that erupted from the ejector. With an oppressive wind, she suddenly flew out and stabbed fiercely at Wu Yan. She didn't learn to be obedient? This thought flashed through Wu Yan's mind, and then he slowly raised the Nin Temple Shana in his hand and blocked the path of the laser lightsaber. The next moment, the laser lightsaber and the Nin Temple Shana suddenly collided. Bang! In the midst of the explosion, the clouds in the sky dissipated inch by inch, blown away one by one. Ding! The tip of the laser lightsaber suddenly touched the blade of the Nin Temple Shana, and a violent shockwave swept out in all directions, and Irene's attack was still ineffective. But Wu Yan's expression changed slightly. That was because the golden electric arcs flashing on the laser lightsaber suddenly burst out and collided with the Nin Temple Shana. There was not much force behind it, but there was an indescribable repulsive force, and it knocked the Nin Temple Shana to the side. A faint smile appeared on Irene's face, but she did not hold back at all. She pulled the laser lightsaber back again, and in 1/100th of a second, she stabbed fiercely at the same position of the Nin Temple Shana that was slanting downwards. Ding! A crisp sound rang out, and the Nin Temple Shana, that was already slanting downwards, suddenly expanded. Ding 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 ding! In an instant, the laser lightsaber in Irene's hand turned into raindrops that blotted out the sky and struck the Nin Temple Shana, at least 100 times in a single second. Then, with a rather crisp sound, the Nin Temple Shana in Wu Yan's hand was knocked out of his hand, and it flew out. Irene's eyes flashed fiercely. "It's over." Like a declaration, Irene waved the laser lightsaber in her hand, and slashed it towards Wu Yan's chest. Irene had no doubt that this attack of hers could end the battle. An elf without an angel would be at least a few times more powerful, and without an angel, even the AST people would be able to defeat an elf. Moreover, the opponent seemed to have been careless all this time, and had not even changed his spiritual equipment. If he was attacked, he would be no different from a normal person being attacked. Victory was in Irene's hands. Unfortunately, Wu Yan was not an elf, and Nin Temple Shana was not an angel. Wu Yan did not need spiritual equipment, because he had an immortal body. Wu Yan did not need an angel, because his own strength was 10,000 times more powerful than an angel. Ding! The expected tearing sound did not come as expected. Irene's determined strike was exchanged for an extremely soft and crisp sound. The laser lightsaber did not hit Wu Yan's body, but was gently pinched by 2 fingers. Impossible! Irene's cold expression after equipping the Pandaragon began to fluctuate violently, and in the end it turned into thick shock. Yes. Looking up, his wine-red eyes met Irene's incredulous gaze. Wu Yan grinned, and said slowly under Irene's gaze, "It's over." With that, Wu Yan raised his other hand, and a monstrous cold air accompanied by a burst of white mist burst out, turning into an icicle, and with a sharp sound of tearing through the air, it pierced towards Irene's chest. The deadly sense of crisis touched Irene's nerves, awakening her from her shock. Looking at the icicle that was shooting towards her chest like a meteor, Irene's expression changed drastically. She didn't have time to think and shouted out softly, "Tertori, Domain of Will. Activate." A circle of dazzling green light spread out from Irene's body, and then compressed fiercely, forming a transparent green hexagon the size of a washbasin in front of her chest. The icicle did not slow down, and in an instant it pierced the small shield. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, a circle of invisible ripples suddenly surged out and blew across the sky, until all the clouds in the distance were blown away, and the shock wave dissipated. Irene clenched her teeth, the Totori in front of her rippled violently, and the icicle was like a spinning drill bit, and at the same time it pierced the Totori in front of her, causing the Totori in front of her to ripple violently. Seeing this scene, half of Irene's heart has already turned cold. Her Totori in front of her is the strongest magician in the world. Even with this, She still can't block the attack of the elf who lost her angel? This elf, this man, who the hell is he? You really know how to put up a meaningless resistance. The world's strongest magician, seeing the stalemate between the icicle and the Totori in front of him, Wu Yen pursed his lips, and with a clench of his hand, a huge icicle at least twice as thick as the icicle in front of him is formed in his hand. Well then, let me thoroughly crush your laughable arrogance. Asterisk swoosh. Asterisk Irene's face turned deathly pale. Chapter 1148. After a brief exchange, Wu Yen had a rough idea of how strong Irene's Pandaragon was. Peak of rank 8. A true peak of rank 8. She's stronger than Kotori, Kurumi, Toka, Yoshino, and even Meijio. Wu Yen finally understood why Irene was so confident in her own strength. She did have the strength to defeat and even kill an elf. If Wu Yen didn't come to this world and Kotori, Kurumi, Toka, and Yoshino didn't become Wu Yan's summons, they wouldn't be Irene's match in a one-on-one duel. The world's strongest magician? An existence that no one can defeat? Indeed, Irene has the right to have that title and the right to say those words. But that was in the past. Now, let alone Kotori and Toka, who reached rank 9, even Kurumi, who's also at peak rank 8, can easily defeat Irene. In terms of strength, Kurumi and Irene are on par, but Kurumi's carving emperor ability is too heaven-defying. Plus, they don't have to worry about time anymore, so defeating Irene isn't too difficult. Even the weakest of them, the 4 Bakunas after summoning an angel, would have the same strength as Irene. Because of Wu Yen, this variable Irene. In this world, it was no longer the era where Alice was called the strongest. Of course, maybe there's someone Wu Yen doesn't know who can defeat Irene, but at least for now, the strongest in this world is Wu Yen. Wu Yen looked at the pale-faced Irene while holding the icicle. His wine-red eyes turned cold. With a wave of his hand, the thick icicle turned into a raging steel drill. It pierced through the air with a sharp explosion and pierced into Irene's domain of will. Clang! Irene's Totori seemed to have been thrown into a giant lake. A loud sound of collision rang out as if she had stabbed into some kind of hard steel. A ripple that couldn't be controlled no matter how hard he tried. Humph! The pale-faced Irene groaned. Her delicate body trembled as if she was struck by lightning. Her originally pale face turned paler and paler until there wasn't any color left in it. Unlike the display device that controls the display device, the CR unit, used for personal combat, uses the user's brain to control the display device and magic power. Therefore, in a state of extreme overload, in order to support the Totori, Irene's brain was beginning to be overwhelmed. The corners of her mouth and nostrils were all over her body. Even the corners of his eyes were bleeding, making him look a little ferocious. Bang! Finally, even the world's strongest magician's Suntory couldn't withstand the attack of the 2 super-strong icicles. With a muffled sound, Irene's Suntory shattered and turned into pieces that filled the sky. Wah! Irene spat out a mouthful of blood. Her overwhelmed brain could no longer control even the weakest part of the display device. Even the ejector on her back had lost control and was extinguished, causing Irene to fall. However, just as she was falling, a shimmering purple chain emerged from a purple magic formation that extended out of thin air, hurtling toward Irene like an arrow. The chain wound around her limbs, and she was suspended in mid-air amid a string of crisp clangs. As expected of the world's most powerful magician, Wu Yen didn't know if he was mocking or praising Irene when he saw her hanging in front of him with blood flowing out of her orifices. He raised his hand slightly. A stream of light flew from below and landed on Wu Yan's palm. Nyedon Temple Shana appeared. Although I was careless, it's no wonder you keep saying a world's most powerful when you can send my Nyedon Temple Shana flying. Wu Yen asked Shana to return to the gate of Babylon and glanced at Irene. But that's it. It's over. Our game tied up. Irene struggled to raise her head. She stared at Wu Yen with eyes full of blood and tears. Her eyes are empty. Impossible. I'm the world's most powerful magician. Irene? Mira? Meth. I can't possibly lose to an elf. Perhaps you were once the world's most powerful. Wu Yen shook his head. But now, in this world, although the number of people who can defeat you is less than 5, there are indeed some. You're no longer the world's most powerful. I'm no longer the world's most powerful. Irene shuddered and shook her head as if she couldn't accept it. Impossible. Impossible. I'm the world's most powerful. Wu Yen looked at Irene sympathetically before he snickered. Looks like dem people like to be immersed in their own sweet dreams. Whether it's treating elves as prey or using unscrupulous means to achieve their goals, how disgusting. Wu Yen raised his hand and opened his palm. Traces of mana surged out and formed a magic formation the size of his palm. Then, at least let me free you. The magic array spun madly, carrying dense mana as it revolved. An attack containing a frightening wave of energy rolled out from the magic array. Just as the attack was about to erupt, Wu Yan's eyes narrowed. The hand holding the magic formation suddenly moved to his side and raised above his head. Whoosh! Almost at the same time Wu Yan moved his hand above his head, an oppressive sound broke through the air. A huge beam of light fell from the sky and landed on the magic formation. Boom! With a muffled sound, the beam of light collided with the magic array at 0 distance, instantly stirring up a violent shockwave and spark-like light spots, fiercely bursting forth. The sudden pillar of light startled Irene, who was waiting for her death. She looked up as if she recalled something. Wu Yen snorted and he tightened his grip on the magic formation. The magic formation expanded until it was as wide as the pillar of light. Then, it exploded against the pillar of light. Boom! Amidst the roar, the magic array detonated the beam of light. Both of them turned into shock waves, sweeping out in all directions with the aftermath of the collision. If this had happened on the ground, the shock waves would have been enough to dig out a small piece of the ground. Wu Yen raised his head and followed Irene's gaze. Then, an airship with the head of a cobra came into view. Impossible! In Albald, the captain and the crew shouted in unison. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The mana-condensing main cannon just now was fired using the maximum amount of mana generated by the entire airship. If the target had been changed to Kamui Island, the entire island might have been destroyed. But such an attack actually. It was blocked by an elf, unscathed. Albald's captain took a few steps back with a blank expression. He looked at Wu Yan's figure on the big screen. His eyes were filled with fear. Is this the power of an elf? Captain! Suddenly, a crew member's horrified voice echoed throughout the airship. Because on the big screen, the elf, that everyone was afraid of was facing their direction and opening her hand again. In her hand, 2 dark red magic formations with a diameter of about 2 meters overlap. With the overlapped area as the center, the space around the magic formations began to crack inch by inch. In the next second, a white beam of light comparable to the mana-condensing main cannon shot out from the cracked magic formation under the watchful eyes of everyone in Albald. On the screen, all the images were filled with intense white light. Like a meteor blooming in the sky, the white beam of light cut through space and even time, hitting a crimson airship in the sky and destroying everything in its path. Boom! Under the attack of the white beam of light, the dark red airship exploded in the sky. Chapter 1149. Dazzling light enveloped the entire place. The white light shot straight into the clouds and into the boundless sky. By the time the white light disappeared, Albald had already exploded. Amidst the flames and dust, it turned into fragments that filled the sky and slowly fell to the ground. If anyone was paying attention to these falling fragments, they would clearly see that during the process of falling, the crimson cobra head-shaped fragments of the airship trembled for a moment, then turned into feathers that emitted a soft white glow. Witnessing the entire process of Albald's death, Irene's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle before continuing to shrink. Looking at Wu Yen, who retrieved the dark red overlapping magic formation as if he did something insignificant, Irene fell into a daze. He destroyed the airship with just one hit. Hearing Irene's dry voice, Wu Yen glanced at her and curled his lips. The Sigh of the Dragon King, launched from the St. George's Sanctuary, had the power to kill a dragon, let alone destroy an airship. That's good too. I don't have to look for it myself. Wu Yen shrugged and chuckled. Then I'll accept the game's reward, you. Irene's breathing quickened, her body began to struggle. Her brain finally regained the ability to control the CR unit again. Under Irene's control, the Pandaragon's wing propellers shot up, creating waves of turbulence. Unfortunately, it's not an ordinary chain that binds Irene. It's the lock of discipline. With Irene's ability, she wouldn't be able to break free even if she was at her peak, let alone in her half-crippled state. With the push of the ejector on her back, her body was shaking violently, even the discipline lock was shaking. It seemed like it would break at any moment, but no matter how hard she tried, the lock would not budge. No matter how hard Irene tried, the lock of discipline was only shaking. There was no sign of it breaking at all. Damn it! Feeling the pain in her limbs from struggling, Irene couldn't help but feel despair in her heart when the lock of discipline didn't change at all. Am I going to die here today? Irene's eyes were filled with unwillingness and gloominess. Wu Yen shook his head with a smile. Looks like even the strongest magician in the world is afraid. He's also afraid of death. At this moment, whoosh, a faint wind whistled from the scene. It was getting louder and louder. Until now, the sky was clear due to the battle between Wu Yen and Irene. As the wind grew louder and louder, a thick layer of clouds floated in the sky. It wasn't white clouds, it was gray clouds. Sensing something amiss, Wu Yen and Irene stopped what they were doing. They looked around and what they saw stunned them. What is going on? Irene forgot to struggle, confusion was written all over her face. Wu Yen frowned when he saw the dark clouds covering the area like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the gray clouds began to spin, forming a huge whirlpool. The whirlpool spun at an extremely slow speed. At this moment, the sky and the dark clouds seemed to have been sucked in by an invisible giant hand, and were stirred up violently. The spinning speed became faster and faster, and in the end, the dark clouds in the sky formed a cloud vortex at a speed and scale that defied common sense, and spun rapidly. Then, the surrounding scenery began to change at an alarming speed. The clear sky turned into dark clouds. It was like the gloominess before a storm. The calm and tranquil world suddenly turned into a typhoon with strong winds. The calm water surface turned into turbulent waves that crashed in all directions. In less than a minute, the world seemed to have been cursed by something and changed abruptly. Even a normal person would think that something is wrong with this change, let alone Wu Yen and Irene. This is... Reacting from the sudden change, the two of them actually looked at each other, and both of them became suspicious. Crackle, while the two of them were still in a baffled state, a wave of thunderous sounds swept out in all directions from the distant horizon. It resounded throughout the world and attracted the attention of the two people present. When the two of them turned their heads to look, the scene of two thunderbolts colliding with each other was imprinted into their eyes. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover that there were two human figures in front of the two clashing thunderbolts. Are those elves? Irene was stunned for a moment before she cried out in surprise. Could it be a berserker? Berserker? Wu Yen couldn't help but look at the two lightning bolts. His wine-red eyes flickered for a moment before he remembered. In the original work, there were two elves who would appear at this time. Captain! Captain! Almost at the same time, Wu Yan's earpiece rang with a voice that woke him up. This voice. Is it you? Captain! I finally got in touch with you. On the other side, Yu's voice sounded surprised, but it quickly turned serious. Captain, where are you now? There was a riot on Komei Island. Riot? Wu Yen paused for a second before pressing his earpiece. What happened? It's the DM's battle robot unit Bandersnatch. You reported concisely. Just now, the DM's Bandersnatch unit attacked Komei Island. Their target seems to be Toka. Wu Yan's expression changed, and he quickly inquired. Are Toka and Shiori okay? Don't worry, Captain. Captain. At this point, Yi Yu's voice carried a hint of a smile. When the radio signal on Komei Island was blocked, Shinatsu ordered Shinatsu to secretly protect Toka and Yamahara-san. That's why everyone on Komei Island is fine. The Bandersnatch unit suddenly stopped operating. Shinatsu told me to contact you and said that the matter was almost resolved. I didn't expect you to actually get in touch with him. Shinatsu, huh? Wu Yen sighed in relief. That was a great help. It's just as Kotori said. Underestimating him is bad. That's true. You agreed. But why did the operation of the Bandersnatch unit and the interference radio signal stop? Wu Yen chuckled as he looked at the spot where Albadel was standing. It's probably because I destroyed the main body, It's nothing. Wu Yen shook his head and looked at the two clashing lightning bolts. Something happened on my side as well. I need some time to deal with it. Before that, keep an eye on Toka, Shiori, and Komei Island. Let Shinatsu deal with it. Understood, Captain. Nodding, Wu Yen ended the call. He turned around and looked at Irene, who was staring at him in a daze. He raised his hand once more. I'm sorry. Mana surged out of his palm and swirled, forming a mana vortex. I don't have time to deal with you. Irene's expression changed drastically. She clenched her teeth. Wu Yen smiled wickedly. Let's play another game. Wu Yen grinned as he held the mana vortex in his hand. The game is about your life and death. Wu Yen narrowed his eyes, ignoring Irene's reaction. If you can survive this attack, I'll accompany you to Sewell Coat the next time we meet. As soon as he finished speaking, the magic vortex that resembled spinning flames suddenly flashed violently. Boom! The ferocious magic power struck Irene's body and engulfed her in thick smoke. Not long after, Irene fell from the smoke like a kite with a broken string. She fell into the vast sea below. Wu Yen looked at the two lightning bolts colliding with each other in the storm. He turned around and he disappeared from where he stood. Chapter 1150. The vast sky was gradually occupied by the strange rotating dark clouds. On the ground, the forests on several islands were gradually being razed to the ground by the violent winds. The lush green branches and leaves of the trees were blown away by the strong wind pressure. They flew everywhere like clothes being thrown into a washing machine, constantly spiraling up into the sky. Some of the slender trees were even uprooted and shot into the surroundings like large bullets. Everywhere they passed, whether it was the ground or the rock walls, they were smashed into medium-sized holes. The waves rolled violently. Everything on the ground was distorted by the strong winds. Everything within the area covered by the swirling dark clouds was distorted. Fortunately, the islands that were being ravaged by the gale were all uninhabited. The only island with residents was Huamei Island. Due to the spacequake problem, the disaster prevention measures were very perfect. Under the attack of such a gale, except for some uncleaned garbage and slender trees flying in the sky, everything else was normal. In the sky, above the clouds where the people on the ground could not see, the two thunderbolts collided fiercely once again, accompanied by an even more intense wind and shock wave. Then, they separated, circled, collided again, and circled again. This repeated repeatedly. Every time the two thunderbolts collided, a violent shock wave would be created. Every time the two thunderbolts circled, a violent wind would blow. As they continued to collide and circle, the dark clouds in the sky became denser and denser. The force of the rotation was also gradually increasing. At the same time, even the surrounding storm was gradually becoming stronger, sweeping everything under the sky unscrupulously. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the storm became so strong that even the disaster prevention measures on Hume Island couldn't withstand it. At that time, it would be a true disaster, no less than a spatial earthquake. It would descend on Hume Island. Bang! A dull thud rang out once again. This time, the collision seemed to be more violent than the previous one. The time and distance between the two thunderbolts had been extended by quite a bit, causing the surrounding storm and swirling dark clouds to stagnate slightly. Perhaps they were tired. The distance between the two thunderbolts increased. After circling in the sky for a while, they stopped. They floated in the air, facing each other from a distance, and didn't collide again. At the same time, the thunderbolts gradually dissipated, revealing two figures inside. They were two beautiful girls in their prime. They were about 16 or 17 years old, not much different from high school students. Both of them had orange hair, silver eyes, delicate facial features, and slender figures. Different from their beautiful appearances, the attire of the two girls was extremely unique. They wore dark-colored jackets, and purple-blue restraints were wrapped around their bodies like leather strap. It covered their bodies. At the same time, his hands, legs, and neck were all shackled. The shackles were even connected to broken chains. He looked like a criminal, which was very strange. The only difference was that the orange hair of the girl on the right was completely coiled up. The shackles were on her right hand, right leg, and neck. The expression on her face was very arrogant, as if she was a queen who had walked out of nowhere. She was very arrogant. The girl on the left had her long orange hair braided into 3 braids. She had the exact same appearance as the other girl, but unlike the arrogance on the other girl's face, she had a pair of listless half-closed eyes. She looked much calmer and more docile than the other girl. In terms of details, this girl was slightly different from the other girl. The style was similar, but the shackles were on the opposite side. They were on the neck, left hand, and left foot. They had the same appearance and the same outfit. Different hairstyle, different temperament. In addition to the masochistic style of hunting clothes, many men with evil intentions would be stimulated by the beautiful sisters in front of them, unable to control their testosterone. Of course, they had to ignore their calamitous might. The two of them were quite far away from each other. They looked at each other with the same silver eyes. Whirlwinds swirled around them. It was like they were the center of a typhoon. They maintained this posture. Not long after, the girl on the right raised her head. "You're quite capable." As if she was acting in a play, the proud girl put her hands on her hips and said proudly, "As for your lively performance, this queen will give you recognition, Shi Xian." Denied. The listless girl with 3 braids called Shi Xian spoke calmly, as if she had lost all her strength. Yi Zhushir's praise will only lower Shi Xian's wariness and cause her combat strength to drop. It is a very low-end method. This consort disdains using such a despicable method. Yi Zhushir glared at Shi Xian, then abruptly pointed a finger at her. In front of this queen's unparalleled strength, there is no need to use psychological tactics against you. Refute. Shi Xian spat out these words expressionlessly. Unparalleled strength is something that Yi Zhushir has never possessed. How can you mortals peek at this queen's supreme fate? Yi Zhushir raised his head proudly. He was almost pointing his nose at the sky. Only fairies like this queen are worthy of the title of 8th dance. Shi Xian, it is time for you to give up. What a joke. Let a fairy like Yi Zhushir become a true 8th dance. That is the fate that no one can peek at. Shi Xian said calmly, the only one worthy of the title of 8th dance should be Shi Xian. Now is the only time you can show off, Shi Xian. Yi Zhushir put one hand on his waist and pointed at Shi Xian with the other as he shouted. Today is the important day for this queen to become a true 8th dance. Don't worry, Shi Xian, this queen will remember that you once had the right to compete with this queen for the title of 8th dance. This queen will make you a glorious stepping stone. Only Shi Xian will become a true 8th dance. The two young ladies used the same appearance and the same eyes to viciously glare at each other. Soon after, the whirlwinds on their bodies suddenly swelled and violently shook in all directions. They were like sharp steel knives that cut through everything. This is... Yi Ju charged at Shi Xian with the whirlwinds around him. The last one. Answer me. Shi Xian's eyes narrowed. Then, a gust of wind blew as he charged forward. The final victory will be Shi Xian's. With a suspenseful tone, the two identical girls, who looked like twin sisters, broke through the surrounding clouds with a momentum that could break through the atmosphere like a hot knife through butter and rushed towards each other. At the center, their gazes met face to face. Immediately after, two slender fists wrapped in strong winds were forcefully swung out. Just as the two girls' fists were about to land on each other's faces, a figure appeared between them without any warning. Both Yi Ju and Shi Xian stopped in shock. However, they could not stop their fists from flying out. They were unable to stop their fists from flying out together. Before Yi Ju and Shi Xian could react, the figure reached out with both hands. Majestic mana currents surged around his hands, dispersing the whirlwinds in the two girls' hands. Then, with one in each hand, the figure grabbed onto Yi Ju and Shi Xian's fists with a crisp pop. Both Yi Ju and Shi Xian opened their mouths in shock. Although both of them had held back in that punch just now, it was still enough to shatter a piece of rock wall. Yet, it was so easily stopped by the two of them at the same time. While the two young ladies were still in shock, the whirlwind on their bodies continued to swirl, whistling as it scraped against the figure's body, causing him to frown. With a sigh, the demonic energy in his hands that were grabbing the two young ladies' fists surged, creating a violent impact. Scatter! As he growled, the surging mana collided with the whirlwinds around Yi Jia and Shi Xian. With a muffled boom, the mana was blasted away, turning into a gust of wind that scattered in all directions. At the same time, Yi Jia and Shi Xian also felt a gentle yet powerful pushing force on their bodies, pushing them heavily. Amidst the cries of surprise, the two girls who looked exactly the same flew out and slid on the clouds for a distance. It wasn't until they slid a few dozen meters away that the two girls managed to stabilize themselves. They looked ahead with a shocked expression on their faces. They looked at the figure that suppressed the two girls. Chapter 1151. The wild wind gradually calmed down in the gray clouds. Who is that? I repeat, who is that? Yi Ju and Shi Xian both turned their gazes to the front. They looked at the figure floating between them in a straight line. Confusion appeared in their eyes. Feeling the two beautiful girls looking at him at the same time, Wu Yen lightly exhaled. He glanced at the two of them with an almost imperceptible glint in his eyes. Bawu Yijia, level 73. Bawu Shi Xian, level 73. Yasuo. Wu Yen narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yaguya and Yushin. Their images matched perfectly with the images in his mind. They're the Bawu sisters? That's... Yi Yu was surprised to see the Bawu sisters on the screen in Fraxinus. She looked at Ling Yin. Could those two elves be berserkers? Ling Yin looked up with dark circles under her eyes and glanced at the Bawu sisters. After a while, she nodded. Indeed, those two elves are berserkers. Wu Yen couldn't help but frown when he heard the conversation between Ling Yin and Yu. Looks like everyone knows the sisters. Well, we don't know each other. Yi Yu shrugged. Well, we don't know each other. I'm sure there are very few people who don't know about elves. Wu Yen glanced at the sisters who are sizing him up. How should I explain this? Night Moon pondered for a moment and then said, in every region of the world where spacequakes have occurred, the reaction of these two elves in the reality has been detected. Every region of the world? This time, Wu Yen is surprised. So you're saying that the sisters have caused spacequakes in every region of the world? That's not it. Yi Yu denied. Indeed, every time Berserker appeared, it would cause a huge spatial quake. The scale of the spatial quake was even greater than that of Shoujo and Shawani. However, the two of them always appeared in the sky where there was no one around. That's why. The spacequakes they caused didn't hurt anyone. Spacequakes didn't hurt anyone. Wu Yen raised an eyebrow. It sounds like there's another reason for them to be hurt? Yes. Yes. Yi Yu's tone was heavy. Although the spatial tremors caused by the two elven sisters didn't harm anyone, they would always appear together in the reality realm, and they would immediately start fighting each other every time they appeared in the reality realm. In addition, they were elves who could control the wind. As a result, it's like a typhoon with self-awareness. While they were making a ruckus, they destroyed everything in their path, didn't they? Wu Yen didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked down at the uninhabited island that was ravaged by the turbulent ocean waves. He shook his head. So that's why the ID name is Berserker? How fitting. That's right. Yi Yu said helplessly, it's unintentional. However, the disasters they bring to the world are real, and they're often exposed to the public. They're the most troublesome pair for organizations that want to keep the existence of elves a secret. Therefore, no matter if it's Ratatosker or AST, they've listed this pair of elven sisters as their priority target. Unfortunately, the movement range and speed of this pair of elves who can control the wind is just too terrifying. So far, no one has been able to fight them face to face. I didn't expect to meet them here. As she spoke, Yi Yu's spirit became excited. If we can seal the sisters, we'll be able to reduce a lot of disasters and solve a huge problem. This is a great opportunity. I'm sure the captain and the commander will be happy to hear about it. Is that so? Wu Yen scratched his cheeks. He turned around and he looked at the Baku sisters. That's right. Let me see how capable these two willful sisters are, Captain. Yi Yu was speechless. She wants you to use peaceful means to interact with them. Don't fight like last time when you met the seducer Meijio. Oh. Wu Yen had a mischievous grin on his face. Well, I'll try my best. The Bawa sisters who were waiting for Wu Yen to make a move were getting impatient. Hey, the man over there. With a fearless look on his face, Yakuya glared at Wu Yen with a sharp gaze. I don't know who you are, but don't you know it's rude to interfere with a duel? Agreed. Shi Xian also glanced at Wu Yen. It's not that Shi Xian wants to agree with Yi Juya, but the duel between Shi Xian and Yi Juya is very important. If possible, please don't interfere. Wu Yan's lips twitched when he heard Yakuya's arrogant declaration and Yu Xian's unique way of speaking. He tossed Yu's advice to the back of his mind. Do you think you're very polite when you say someone is rude? In Fraxinus, whether it was Night Moon, Ling Yin, Godless Moon, or the other members of Ratatosker, they couldn't help but cover their faces. Their faces were filled with pain. Yakuya widened his eyes and he glared at Wu Yen with even sharper eyes. Can I take what you said as an insult to the Bawa sisters? Of course. Shi Xian's tone also revealed a faint displeasure. Shi Xian has never done anything rude. What you said is definitely an insult. Is that so? Wu Yen smiled bitterly and pointed at the islands below. Then please open your wise eyes and look at what you've done to those islands. Yi Juya and Shi Xian were stunned. They looked down and saw the uninhabited islands. They looked at each other and looked at Wu Yen. Isn't it just a few uninhabited islands? Is there a problem? Yes. Shi Xian would like to know the answer too. You guys. Wu Yen crossed his arms and he pursed his lip. It's rude for others to disturb your duel, but isn't it rude for you to disturb other people's lives? Yi Juya and Shi Xian choked and refuted. But isn't that an uninhabited island? No, there's no one on that island. Shi Xian didn't disturb anyone's life. Unfortunately, I just happened to be there. Wu Yen lied without blushing. You two disturbed me, so I came over. Otherwise, who would fly up to the sky to play? Ugh. Yi Juya and Shi Xian were speechless. Is that so? Wu Yen smiled meaningfully when he saw that the two women were speechless. As the witch of the hurricane and the spirit of the dance, you can't deny your mistakes. Of course. Yi Juya nodded reluctantly, his expression a little resentful. Indeed, it was this consort who was rude first. Then, this consort will not pursue your actions. Agreed. Shi Xian also agreed. It seems that Shi Xian and Yi Juya were wrong first. I apologize to you. Then, Shi Xian. Yi Juya looked at Shi Xian and raised his chin as if he wanted to change the topic. Let's go somewhere else and continue our sacred duel. Agreed. Shi Xian narrowed her eyes and met Yi Juya's gaze. Wait, I'm not done yet. Wu Yen rubbed his forehead and sighed. Why do you insist on a duel? Ho, are you interested in our duel? Yi Juya puffed out his chest. However, you are just an outsider. Even if we were rude first, we cannot let you interfere with our sacred duel. Please don't interfere with our duel. Shi Xian looked at Wu Yen and said calmly. Shi Xian and Yi Juya's duel is necessary. It must be carried out. Then why don't you let me interfere? Wu Yen said kindly. Since it's a duel, there should be a judge, right? Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can give you an idea? Yes. This. Both Yeju Shi and Shi Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding their heads. Chapter 1152. Unknowingly, the dark clouds in the sky that seemed to have been stirred up by something slowly returned to their original state. They gradually dissipated, revealing the originally clear and incomparably blue sky. The sea gradually calmed down. The wind was calm and the waves were calm. Warm sunlight poured down and covered the messy and uninhabited islands. If it weren't for the remnants of the storm on the islands, everything that happened just now would have been treated as a dream. In the boundless sky, 3 figures were floating in the air. 2 of the slender figures were saying something to the figure in the middle. From time to time, they would compliment each other. Their tacit understanding couldn't be any better. He believed that no matter who saw this scene, no one would believe that the storm that almost destroyed everything was caused by these 2 incomparably adorable girls. They also wouldn't believe that before that the 2 had a life and death duel. In other words, Wu Yen rubbed his chin as he looked at the 2 sisters floating in front of him. They had the same face but completely different temperament and mannerisms. Simply put, you 2 were originally the same sprite, named Bawu, but after who knows how many times you appeared, you mysteriously split into 2, even Bawu's original personality disappeared. Wu Yen frowned as he combined the information he got from the Bawu sisters and his own memories of the original plot. Then, you 2 will one day return to being the same person. When that time comes, the 2 of you will have to decide on one of you as the main personality, the other will disappear unconditionally, right? Yes. As expected of the man who can stop us Bawu sisters from dueling. Yi Juya raised his chin in an exaggerated manner and crossed his arms in front of his chest. The situation is as you said. Add on. Compared to Yi Juya, Shi Xian's expression was much calmer. That's why Shi Xian and Yi Juya kept dueling to decide who will be the main personality of Bawu in the future. Is that so? Wu Yen nodded thoughtfully, but the frown on his face didn't disappear. That doesn't make sense. I've seen a lot of dual personalities, but I've never heard of another personality disappearing. Indeed. Whether it was Kotori who had 2 personalities or Nagisa and Agirola who were originally different but now merged into one, there was no danger of the other personality disappearing. Logically speaking, dual personality disorder should also be allowed to exist. That kind of thing. Only the goddess of fate would know. Yi Juya's tone had a hint of unspeakable gloom. Explanation. This is something Shi Xian and Yi Juya knew from the moment they were born. Shi Xian's expression didn't change. Shi Xian didn't change her expression, but she looked away. Shi Xian and Yi Jia don't know why this is. This is really tricky. Wu Yen scratched his cheeks. He could see that the two girls are depressed to varying degrees. Wu Yen had a rough idea of their situation, so he changed the topic. But, you guys are just split sprites and yet, you guys are so strong. If you guys return to your original form, I'm afraid the real Yitan would be on par with Irene. Wu Yen bitterly laughed. So the two of you are the real hidden bosses, of course. Yi Jia straightened his back when he heard Wu Yan's words. His expression was full of pride, but he was soon confused. But who is Irene? Oh. Ma, don't mind me, don't mind me. Wu Yen waved his hand in a perfunctory manner before turning serious. Now that I understand the general situation, I'll get straight to the point. Wu Yen looked at Yakuya and Dushin before he continued. To be frank, I don't think your duel is meaningful at all. What? Yi Jia and Shi Xian were stunned for a moment before they became angry. You bastard, are you trying to humiliate the duel between us Baowa saints? Angry, Shi Xian can't pretend she didn't hear that. For the sake of survival, Shi Xian and Yi Jia's duel is significant. It's useless even if you're angry at me. As a judge, I have to give you a fair answer, right? Wu Yen was calm when he saw how angry the Baowa sisters were. Think about it. You were originally one entity, but when you split, you became two independent existences. But at the root of it all, you're still the same person. You're equal in power, and your spiritual equipment is the same. Even the angel was split into two and became your trump card. Tell me, do you think it's possible to win if you continue fighting like this? Yaguya and Shi Xian, whose faces were filled with anger, were stunned. They looked at each other and fell silent. But there's nothing we can do about it. Yi Jia said in annoyance, we've tried everything we can, but we still can't come up with a winner. I really can't think of any other way to determine a winner. Depressing, Yukinori is the same. I can't think of a good way to duel. Yukinori slowly shook her head. She looked at Wu Yen with her listless eyes. Or do you have a better way to duel, Mr. Notary? Yagi Shi and Shi Xian looked at Wu Yen at the same time. Wu Yen didn't understand the glint in their eyes, but he could roughly guess what they were looking at him with. He sighed. Even if you say that, I can't think of a better way. What? Yi Jia pursed his lips in disappointment. Then, he thought of something and his eyes lit up. He clapped his hands. I got it. His sudden shout startled Wu Yen and Shi Xian. They looked at each other when they saw how excited Yokosuka was, to the point that he even removed the Hongong prefix. What did you think of? Shi Xian wants to know too. Keek. Yi Jia looked at Wu Yen. When Wu Yen felt that something was wrong, he looked at Shi Xian. Shi Xian, there seems to be one thing we haven't done in our sacred duel. Shi Xian tilted her head and asked. What is that? Yakuya smirked. He pointed at Wu Yen as if he was making a declaration. He spoke with a loud and clear voice, emphasizing each and every word. Our duel has yet to determine a winner, and that is charm. Charm? Both Shi Xian and Wu Yen were stunned. Their expressions turned strange. Yi Jia, you're not thinking of seducing me with Shi Xian, are you? Oh? As expected of the notary of our duel. Yi Jia said excitedly. What do you think? This is a good duel, right? Response, I see. Yu Xian nodded. She looked at Wu Yen. Indeed, this is a duel we haven't done before. It's perfect for the final duel. That's right. Wu Yen was stunned when he saw the two sisters talking to each other. Then, he laughed. What are you laughing at? Yakuya furrowed his brows and he glared at Wu Yen. Is there something strange about this consort's decision? I agree. I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling about it. Shi Xian frowned and said to Wu Yen, Mr. Notary, please give me some pointers. Nope. Wu Yen laughed while waving his hands at the two girls. It's just a little weird. What's weird about it? Yi Juya stared at Wu Yen. He looked like he would pounce on him at any moment. Are you mocking my charm? Do you think I can't seduce you? Well, that's pretty much what I mean. Wu Yen shrugged and laughed. Although the two of you are very cute, there are also many cute girls around me. After being together for so long, I have already honed my extraordinary willpower. Can you really do it? The last question successfully ignited the fire in the hearts of the Baowu sisters. Hey, Shi Xian, it seems like we can only do it. I agree. Looking at the fiery eyes of the sisters in front of him, Wu Yen suddenly felt like he just smashed his own foot with a rock. Chapter 1153. Huamei Island, Archive. The sky was pitch black, and the howling winds were visible to the naked eye. Like sharp blades, they sliced through the surroundings, blowing all the lighter objects on the ground into the air. Outside the window, the trees slanted more and more under the strong wind. Even though there was a wall between them, the sharp sound of the wind could still be heard clearly by every student who came to Zen High School. Some of the more timid students turned pale and trembled all over. There is nothing they can do about it. Originally, they had planned to travel here happily. Who would have thought that the change in the weather would be so abnormal? Just a second ago, he was still rushing towards the archive, but in less than a minute, the clear sky suddenly turned dark, the calm ocean suddenly became turbulent, and the strong wind suddenly blew, and in a short moment, it became a strong storm that could even blow people away. By the time the students of Chan High School followed the instructions of the teachers and arrived at the archive, the outside world had completely turned into a world of storms. Looks like it won't stop for a while. Shiori sighed as she looked at the thick glass windows that kept shaking under the strong wind, and the creaking sound that could break at any time. This weather. It won't last until the end of the trip, right? That would be really bad. You. Toka's face is full of regret, but more than that, she is worried. Shoujo. It should be fine, right? Shiori paused for a moment before recalling the incident where Wu Yen left the team on their way to the data center. Worry surfaced on her face as well. It should be fine, right? Wu. Hearing Shiori's words, which didn't sound like an affirmative sentence, Toka couldn't help but become more worried. Her purple eyes looked at the strong wind outside the window. She gritted her teeth and rushed towards the door. I'll go find Shoujo. Wait! Shiori exclaimed. She grabbed Toka's hand. In this weather, even if you go find Shoujo, you won't be able to walk properly, you might even be blown away, it's useless. But, Toka's worry turned into anxiety, even her heart is full of anxiety. At this moment, a voice filled with surprise and joy reverberated above the archive. It attracted everyone's attention. Look, it's Sunny. All the students and teachers hurriedly gathered in the direction of the window and looked up at the sky. They didn't know when the dark clouds had scattered, but the blue sky had revealed itself. The distant sea gradually calmed down, and the wind also stopped. It stopped. It really stopped. That's great. I thought this trip was going to be scrapped. I hope the weather doesn't change so much. The entire archive was suddenly filled with a mixture of surprise and joy. Even the teachers had smiles on their faces. Looking at the sky outside the window that had once again returned to its clear state, he repeatedly sighed with emotion. They are sighing about the magical weather. It's good when it's good, it's bad when it's bad. There was no warning at all, and they were almost caught off guard. It's true. It's sunny. Toka pressed her face against the window. With a touch of joy on his face, he turned around and ran through the densely packed Lichon High School students toward the entrance of the information center. Toka! Shiori also hurriedly followed behind Toka and ran to the door. The group of students and teachers didn't seem to want to stay in the lifeless library anymore. They all ran out one by one. Just as 10 Fragrances, who was running at the front, was about to open the door of the archive and rush out, the door that was less than 3 or 4 meters away from 10 Fragrances suddenly opened by itself, giving 10 Fragrances a fright. Then, the person Toka was looking for appeared at the door. Shoujo. Toka's face is happy. Just as she was about to rush over, her body stiffened. She can't move anymore. No, it's not just Toka. Even Shiori and the other students and teachers behind her are frozen on the spot, looking at Wu Yan standing at the door. They are silent. Even though there was a big typhoon just now, Wu Yan didn't have any injuries on his body. Even his hair and clothes are in perfect condition, not a single bit messed up. He looked exactly the same as when he left the group. Come to think of it, the typhoon just now didn't affect him at all. This scene made Toka and Shiori, who were worried about Wu Yan, let out a sigh of relief. But after letting out a sigh of relief, the two of them frowned at the same time. Their gazes turned sharp in an instant. Because, next to the unscathed Wu Yan, there are two people. The two of them looked exactly the same. They had orange hair and silvery eyes. They were very beautiful girls. Of course, if it's just two extra girls, it's not a problem for Toka and the others to act like this. The problem is, these two very beautiful girls are wearing revealing restraints. Their necks, hands and feet are all shackled. That's not the most important problem. After all, there are people who like to dress up and have special interests. But when these two girls are standing close to the man in the middle, constantly squeezing into his arms, they can't be ignored. Shoujo. Hugging Wu Yan's right arm, the girl with a proud smile on her face squeezed into Wu Yan's arms and said, "I've already lowered myself, shouldn't you be grateful and give your all to me?" Refute. As soon as the girl on the right finished speaking, the listless girl hugging Wu Yan's left arm immediately spoke up. Choosing Yi Jusher will only lower your taste. Compared to Yi Jusher, Shi Xian is the real life of Shoujo. Please stand on Shi Xian's side. What did you say? To be able to receive my love. That's Shoujo's luck. No, Yi Jusher's love is of no use to Shoujo. Only Shi Xian can give Shoujo the highest level of service. Your service is useless. Jeer, Yi Jusher doesn't understand what a creature like men really need. Laughing, you've already lost by saying that. How can you not know? Men are creatures, don't you just need to smile at them, and they'll throw themselves at you? Pity, not all women can do that. Yi Jusher is definitely not one of them. Do you want to fight? Accept the challenge, Shi Xian is ready at any time. Ignoring everyone present, Yi Jusher and Shi Xian continued to argue with each other with a wall of flesh between them. Their scantily clad bodies kept rubbing against Wu Yan's chest. This is a scene that would make any male creature green with envy and jealousy. However, Wu Yan didn't enjoy it at all. Instead, he sweated profusely. He could clearly feel the more the sisters rubbed against each other, the more intense the gazes from Lai Chan High School's teachers and students became. Some of them even carried negative emotions. Especially two of them. One was full of disdain, the other was extremely cold. Shoujo. Shixiang lowered her head. A clearly suppressed voice traveled into Wu Yan's ears from under her bangs. They. Who are they? Ha ha ha. Wu Yan was sweating as he laughed. Shixiang looked at him with even more disdain. The surrounding students and teachers glared at him, causing his smile to become more and more forced. They're just lost lambs. When he said that, the gazes on Wu Yan became even more intense. Lost lambs? Does that mean they were abducted by him? And they're wearing those clothes, did he force them? What kind of fun is this? It's disgusting, so bad. There's already Yamato Kami. There's also Tokasaki-san. I'm so embarrassed for Shixiang. Yeah, whispers came from the crowd, accompanied by the gazes of the teachers as if they were looking at a problematic youth, causing the scene to become chaotic. Wu Yan started sweating profusely. The Baku sisters are still bickering with each other, Toka is still exuding a terrifying aura, and Shiori suddenly distanced herself from him. He wanted to cry but he didn't have the tears to do so. Chapter 1154. Above Komiai Island, Fraxinus. Ha! The automatic door of the command room slowly slid open. Shina, who had taken off her CR unit, panted as she walked into the command room. Fighting in such a strong storm is really tiring. Thank you for your hard work, Shina. You nodded at Shina and scratched her head apologetically. I'm sorry for giving you the job. I don't have much talent in controlling CR units. I can only use some gun-type devices to attack. Otherwise, I would have been able to help you. Well, don't mind it. Shina shook her head. Her blue ponytail swayed like a puppy's tail. It's very cute. Senior Yeyue's strength is unquestionable. Back then, when she fought against Nightmare, that godly shot of hers is still fresh in my memory. I only have some experience with guns. You shrugged. She looked at Kanushi Kuhei, who was hugging his chair. It's not like there aren't any men here who are more talented than me. Shina looked at Kanushi Kuhei, who was drooling and mumbling nonsense. Kanushi Kuhei had a disgusted look on his face. She was conflicted. Indeed, if one were to say that Yu's ability to use a personal gun-type display device had surprised Shina, then Konosuke Kuhei's outstanding command had shocked Shina. Not only could she perfectly grasp the situation on Haimai Island and let her attack in advance, she could even support him in that kind of weather and calculate the effective time of the storm, so that she could really defeat all the Bandersnatch troops that were sent to Haimai Island without anyone noticing. Shina sincerely felt that if she didn't have Kanushi Kuhei's instructions, even if she could take down all the Bandersnatch troops on Komiai Island, the residents of Komiai Island would still be shocked. It was inevitable that it would be witnessed by the local residents and even the students of Lai-chan High School. It might even put Toka and Shiori in danger. Recalling Kuhei Konosuke's advice on the radio during the battle with the Bandersnatch, Shinana's opinion of Kuhei Konosuke had changed. He had also changed his opinion of Kuhei Konosuke. However, Kanushi Kuhei's performance. Shina couldn't help but lower her opinion of him. The two cancelled each other out. Even if it was true, he still felt conflicted. All in all, the Bandersnatch troops have been taken down. There shouldn't be any more problems on the island. Shaking his head, Zhen Na shook his head and looked at Yu. How's the captain? Captain. Night Moon smiled bitterly and looked at the big screen. It's a bit troublesome. Why are you guys always sticking to Shoujo? As this consort's most loyal guard, isn't it natural for Shurdao to protect this consort? What's the meaning of this? Explain. Explanation: Yujuya and Yuxian are having a very important event. They need Shoujo to do it. I don't know what's going on, but if that's the case, I want to participate. Do you want to be my opponent? How brave of you. Opponent? This means that there can only be one winner in this meaningful event, and the winner will be the owner of Shoujo. Obtain Shoujo's ownership? I want to participate. I want to participate too. What? A mere human dares to challenge the Witch of Komiai Island. Exclusion. This is a duel between Yujuya and Yuxian. Outsiders are not allowed to participate. Why can you two do it but not me? Wu Yen listened to the bickering coming from his left, right, and front. He watched as Toka, Yagiya, and Yukinori clashed with each other. Wu Yen felt like he was sandwiched between the three of them. His face was filled with fatigue. For half an hour, Wu Yen was bombarded by the three elven girls. Even an immortal vampire like true ancestor Wu Yen wouldn't be able to take it. Wu Yen couldn't help but yell when he saw that the three of them were going to continue. He struggled to break free from Yujuya and Yuxian's hands. I say, when are you guys going to stop arguing? I'm not the one who wants to make a fuss. Toka pouted with tears in her eyes. She looked at Wu Yen with a pitiful expression. I just want them to leave your side, ho ho ho. Yujuya laughed arrogantly like a queen and waved his hand at 10 Fragrance. It's too late, Shoujo already belongs to me, it's my spoils of war. No, Yuxian has never heard of spoils of war. Yuxian looked away from 10 Fragrance and towards Yujuya. Yujuya hasn't succeeded in seducing Shoujo, so Yu Xian thinks it's just Yu Juya's delusion. Humph, my half Yu Xian, I didn't expect you to have the same vision as those mortals. Yu Juya raised his chin and put his hands on his waist. He said confidently, "With my charm, Shoujo will become mine as soon as I make a move. He won't be able to leave me, I'm just giving you a chance to show off." "I doubt it, Yu Xian thinks charm is just Yu Juya's delusion." Yu Xian's face tensed up, she said bluntly, "Is Yu Juya just pretending because he doesn't have the guts to fight? That kind of thing is absolutely impossible." Jejuya was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her face was bright red. Before she could use her usual Chunibu speech to cover up her embarrassment, Shi Xian's calm words made her swallow her words. Provocation, Yu Xian seriously doubts Yu Juya's words. Wah! Yu Juya's expression changed. He pointed at Yu Xian and shouted, "Since you've said that, I'll show you my strength." He didn't even give Yu Xian and 10 Fragrance time to react. He turned around and looked at Wu Yan. His gaze was more like a tomboy looking at a chicken on the chopping board than a young girl looking at a seductive man. "You! What do you want?" Wu Yan's mouth twitched, he took a few steps back. "I advise you not to do anything rash. If you really do seduce me, I'll take you to the world of adults." The world of adults. Yu Juya's eyes lit up, he shouted excitedly, "If you take me to the world of adults, does that count as seduction?" Wu Yan almost choked on his breath. He couldn't breathe anymore. "Isn't that nonsense? If I really take you to the world of adults, I'll even risk my life for you, let alone seduction." "I see." Yu Juya smiled brightly when he heard Wu Yan. He raised his head and puffed out his chest. He declared without hesitation, "Then, Shoujo, I'll grant you the right to take me to the world of adults." Wu Yan was stunned. "Objection." Yu Xian stepped forward and stared at Wu Yan. "Yu Xian also wants to be taken to the world of adults. Don't even think about leaving me behind." When Toka saw that Yakuya and Dushin wanted to follow Wu Yan to that so-called adult world, Toka hurriedly stood up. "I want to go too. I want to go too." Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat when he heard the declaration of the 3 elven girls. He almost collapsed to the ground. "I say," raising his hand, Wu Yan asked in a meek voice, "do you know what you have to do to go to the world of adults?" Hearing this, Toka, Yeju-Shi, and Shi Xian looked at each other in dismay. Immediately after, 3 sentences popped out of their mouth. "Is it touching butt?" "Yes, is it touching breasts?" Shoujo said that if you want to grow up, you have to eat more. If you become an adult, don't you mean eating a big meal? Looking at the curiosity and doubt in the eyes of the 3 elven girls, Wu Yan suddenly felt like he's a filthy person. Chapter 1155. Sigh. After walking out of Teacher Xiaozhu's room and closing the door, Wu Yan let out a tired sigh and rubbed his aching forehead. In order to get a place for Yi Jia and Shi Xian to stay, he had spent a full 30 minutes brainwashing Teacher Xiaozhu. Of course, this so-called brainwashing did not refer to Wu Yan directly using a mind-controlling tactic to invade Teacher Xiaozhu's brain. Instead, he relied on his glib tongue. Using deceiving Teacher Xiaozhu, he nagged the pure, kind, and naive Teacher Xiaozhu until her head swelled. Then, when she was dizzy, he inadvertently mentioned this matter and made her nod in agreement in her dizzy state. That was the general situation. First, I spent an entire day arguing with Toka, Yakuya, and Shi Xian. Then, I spent an hour with the 3 elf girls inquiring about the method to enter the adult world with curious and innocent eyes. After that, I spent another half an hour chatting with Teacher Little Bead. Wu Yan was already exhausted. If I knew this would happen, I would have used the mind invasion magic directly. Wu Yan smiled bitterly. Although I feel somewhat apologetic towards Teacher Little Zhu, after saying this, Wu Yan sighed again and walked back to his room with heavy steps. No matter what, at the very least, Yi Jia and Shi Xian were granted the right to stay in his room. He didn't have to throw them outside or sleep on the same bed as him. This was something worth celebrating. As for regrets, Wu Yen didn't have any based on the habits of the Bawa sisters, who had the will die if you don't quarrel disease. If you really slept on the same bed with them tonight, not to mention whether you could take advantage of them, you definitely wouldn't be able to sleep. He hesitated for 0.01 seconds before seriously choosing the latter over spending a night in the gentle home of the two noisy girls or sleeping peacefully for the night. After all, he was so tired in terms of spirit, however. Finally, I can rest for a while, thinking back to today's fight with Irene, then the battle, then the destruction of an airship and encountering a pair of talkative elf sisters. Wu Yen realized that he seemed to have done a lot today. At this moment, he was even more anxious to go back to his room. Unfortunately, he didn't know if the heavens were trying to help him or if they're just toying with him. Just as he was about to turn into the corridor leading to his room, two clear voices came from behind him. Shoujo. Repeat. Shoujo. Hearing these two familiar voices and the special tone and method of speaking, Wu Yan's expression stiffened and his footsteps suddenly quickened. Don't think you can escape. Pounce. Hey! Following the sound of two steps on the ground and two sounds of air breaking, Wu Yan's body, which was in a charging posture, was hit by two cotton balls. Under the attack of the neither light nor heavy weight, Wu Yan very cleanly fell to the ground. It's rare for this queen to be so merciful and pamper you, Shoujo. How dare you run away? This is simply disrespectful. Angry, Shixian feels that Shoujo's behavior is enough to cause a serious blow to the heart of a young girl, so please stay here obediently. Hearing this, Wu Yan, who was about to struggle up, immediately deflated. He turned his head and looked at the two identical Bawu elves, one with a proud face, the other expressionless on his back, as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out. He weakly made a posture of prostrating himself on the ground and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. You two still haven't given up? In this queen's noble life, the word give up has never existed. Maintaining the posture of riding on Wu Yan, Yajuya pursed his lips. Before I succeed in making you pledge your loyalty to me, this queen will not give up. Explain. I'm actually dissatisfied with what you said, Shoujo. Shixian narrowed her eyes and stared at Wu Yan's face. Shixian is very dissatisfied with Shoujo's suspicion that Yajuya and Shixian will not succeed in seducing you. That's my fault, I'll apologize, okay? Wu Yan's face was covered in tears. At that time I was just casually saying it. I really do have many very cute girls around me, so when I heard you say you want to seduce me, I mentioned it to tell you that I already have experience and that it's best to change the way we duel. How can we, the spirits of the Eight Dance, lose to a group of human women? Yajuya couldn't let it go. He couldn't help but increase the weight of his body to press down on Wu Yan. When you see this queen's charm, you'll know how foolish your previous thoughts were. Agreed. Shixian also pressed down on Wu Yan. Seducing a very experienced Taoist would be the perfect way for the final duel between Yeju Shi and Shixian. Why you guys? Wu Yan started trembling. He's so angry he's shaking. I admit defeat, then let's continue with your seduction duel tomorrow, okay? Wu Yan raised his hands in surrender. I'm very tired right now, very tired. When I wake up, you can seduce me however you want. I'll cooperate however you want. Are you satisfied now? No. No. Yi Jia refused without hesitation. Our sacred duel has already been decided that you'll be the stage, there's no room for error. Of course. Shixian nodded. If we compromise now, then that kind person's help will be wasted. Kind person? Wu Yan looked at the Yamato sisters on his back with a puzzled look. What kind of kind person? Yajuya and Shixian looked at each other and smiled meaningfully. 10 minutes ago, Shoujo. Yajuya, who had already taken off his spiritual attire and put on his bathrobe, looked around and stomped his feet indignantly. Damn it, how dare you betray us? That's a capital offense. Indignant. Shi Xian's silver eyes were also filled with dissatisfaction. A man who abandons a woman is the worst. Just a little bit more. Yaguya shrugged dejectedly. Just a little bit more and Shoujo would have fallen to the point where he can't leave me and become my helper. No, Yaguya wasn't just a little bit off. He was so far away that even the ocean couldn't compare to him. Shi Xian's eyebrows twitched. Shi Xian will definitely go further than Yaguya on the path to Shoujo. That's not true. Shoujo will definitely belong to me. No, Yaguya won't be able to attract Shoujo. Shoujo will only choose girls like Shi Xian. That's not true. That's the conclusion. That's not true. Answer yes. The two sisters argued as they walked. They had long forgotten that they came out to look for Wu Yan. They were so engrossed in their argument that they didn't pay attention to their surroundings. Around the corner, a figure wearing a cloak, a hat, and sunglasses suddenly rushed in front of them. They almost didn't react in time. When the two sisters finally reacted, they thought it was an enemy and were about to attack when a low voice came from the other party's mouth. Young ladies, you seem to be very troubled. Both Yi Zhu and Shi Xian stopped what they were doing and frowned at the same time. Yi Zhu even yelled out, "Who are you? You actually dare to block my path?" Hee hee. A very uncomfortable laughter echoed, causing the frowns of the Baowu sisters to deepen. Just as the two sisters were about to lose their patience, the cloaked person spoke. "Do you want to know how to seduce a man? I have a secret here." Secret? Hearing this, the eyes of the two elf girls shook and they started to waver. Before the Baowu sisters could react, the cloaked person continued. "Actually, there are only 3 steps to seducing a man." 3 steps? The Baowu sisters held their breath. The cloaked person nodded heavily. Strip. Strip. The Baowu sisters were stunned. "Kiss him after you strip." Kiss? The Baowu sisters widened their eyes. "After you kiss him, let him do all the work." The cloaked person glanced at the two girls with sunglasses. "That's fine." Yaguya and Shi Xian looked at each other in dismay. Chapter 1157. Perhaps it was because the tongues of the two elven girls were too soft and small, or perhaps it was because a certain wolf's mouth was too big for its libido, but when it sucked Yaguya and Shi Xian's tongues into its mouth, it fit perfectly. Woo! Perhaps they did not expect things to turn out this way. Both Yaguya and Shi Xian let out a whimper at the same time. Their watery silver eyes started to turn misty. Even their cheeks started to turn pink. Not long after, their consciousness started to turn blurry. Feeling 3 tongues sweep back and forth in their mouths, intertwining and coiling around each other, the inseparable feeling brought the man and the two girls unusual pleasure. This was especially so for Yaguya and Shi Xian, who were kissing for the first time. After all, they weren't just doing something intimate with a man, they were also doing it with their sisters who had been together since birth. No matter how inseparable the Baowu sisters were, no matter how similar their natures were, they would never try kissing each other. Now, they were doing something only lovers could do while seducing the same man. In addition, the two elven girls had feelings for each other that no one knew about. It was almost instantaneous. The two girls were immersed in it. Immersed in the pleasure of kissing someone of the opposite sex for the first time. Immersed in the pleasure of kissing their closest sisters for the first time. At the same time, Wu Yan was also enjoying it immensely. Kissing, it's not like he hasn't tried it before. But the 3 of them kissing at the same time was a novel experience. Such a difficult experience, I'm afraid only the Yamato sisters, who are inseparable and born from the same body, would be able to give Wu Yan such a chance. The 3 tongues that were completely inseparable from each other were tightly intertwined. Back and forth, the 3 of them could no longer distinguish whose tongue was tangling with theirs. They only knew that they were constantly moving their tongues. Not long after, Streams of saliva slowly flowed down from the corners of Yi Juya and Shi Xian's mouths. Coiling the three tongues together is already an extremely difficult task. Trying to coax the three mouths together is simply impossible. That was simply impossible. Right now, Yi Jia and Shi Xian were trying their best to extend their tongues into Wu Yan's mouth. It was also because of this that this feat could be accomplished so smoothly. Therefore, the saliva that flowed down his tongue could no longer be controlled. Strands of blood flowed from the corners of the two elf girls' mouths. Coupled with the tsk, chirping and panting sounds that reverberated in the surroundings, the atmosphere of the scene was rather obscene. After a long time, their lips parted, ha ha. The moment their lips parted, Yi Ju-shi and Shi Xian raised their heads and gasped for air. His eyes were filled with confusion. What kind of feeling is this? Wow, Sunset Cord feels more comfortable than ever before. This is the first time I feel that being in close contact with someone is a wonderful thing. After saying that, the two elf girls turned to look at each other. When they thought about how the other had participated in the Battle of Tongues, their rosy cheeks turned even redder. If someone who didn't know what was going on saw this, they might misunderstand the relationship between the two sisters. For example, they might look like sisters on the surface but they're actually each other's lovers. Noticing each other's gaze, the Bawa sisters blushed and looked away. As if trying to hide something, they looked at Wu Yan at the same time. How is it, Shoujo? Yi Ju-shi panted as he smiled proudly at Wu Yan. You've been captured by my ritual, right? I have a question. Are you satisfied? Shi Xian looked at Wu Yan like a pitiful little girl. She met Wu Yan's gaze with a pitiful expression. Actually, Shi Xian can continue. I can do it too. Yi Ju-shi hurriedly said, but the blush on his face didn't disappear. Hearing the Bawa sisters' words, Wu Yan's hands on their waists began to move. He gently stroked Yi Ju-shi's and Shi Xian's smooth backs. Recalling the feeling of their tongues and the softness of their bodies, he licked his lips and his eyes burned with passion. It's impossible to satisfy them. Without a doubt, the Bawa sisters' actions had aroused Wu Yan's passion. As he stroked their backs, he leaned over and whispered into their ears. Why don't we do something that should be done in a real adult's world? Something that should be done in a real adult's world. Although they didn't know what kind of world the adult's world was, the Bawa sisters instinctively felt their hearts skip a beat and they started to pant. That's exactly what I want. Yi Ju-shi was the first to speak with a red face. Let me give you a chance to swear your loyalty. Shoujo. I agree. Shi Xian's eyes were still rippling. It was abnormally attractive. The third step is to let the other party do all the work after kissing. The meaning in her words was obvious. Wu Yan could do whatever he wanted. The passion in his heart swelled, causing Wu Yan's wine-red eyes to burn with passion. He stared at the two elven girls' flushed faces and sweaty skin. His hands moved and he wanted to touch them. Under the passion in his heart, even Wu Yan forgot that he was still in a corridor. Ugh! Being a teacher is really hard. I still have to patrol in the middle of the night. I wonder if everyone is asleep. The sound of footsteps and soft murmurs coming from the corner of the corridor instantly woke up the man and the two women who were about to engage in a hand-to-hand fight. The three of them reflexively looked towards the end of the corridor, and then they saw it. On the floor, a torchlight and a shadow were slowly approaching them. Wu Yan sucked in a breath of cold air. If the patrolling teacher saw him hugging two lost lambs and having a passionate conversation openly in the corridor, wouldn't he be in trouble? Then, Wu Yan carried the two girls in his arms and went in without hesitation. Why are there two bathrobes on the floor? The Bawa sisters who were hiding in the wardrobe just realized what was going on. They held their breaths for a moment but soon, they let out a small cry of surprise at the same time. It was all because a hand had suddenly climbed up their perfectly round bosoms and started to grope them. The two sisters' chest area was completely lost. Just as Yi Jia and Shi Xian were about to gasp for breath, A voice that was very close to them echoed from outside the wardrobe. It was filled with doubt. Was there a sound just now? Yijia and Shixien subconsciously pursed their lips when they heard that. They suppressed the joy that rose from the depths of their hearts. Even their delicate bodies began to tremble. Even though the wardrobe was dark and the Bawa sisters couldn't see what was going on inside, they could clearly feel that the hot hand was moving back and forth across their delicate bodies. It was caressing and pinching without restraint. The intense sensation caused the Bawa sisters to clamp their thighs together. However, that evil hand did not stop. Instead, it became more and more unrestrained. Just a moment ago, it was only sliding across their breasts, buttocks, and skin. Now, it was slowly sliding towards their thighs. The two elven girls widened their silver eyes. They wanted to call out, but the footsteps outside the wardrobe were still light. It meant that the patrolling teacher was still doing his job. In order to not be discovered by the patrolling teacher, Yijia and Shixien could only suppress their restlessness and cast a pleading look at Wu Yan. She didn't know if Wu Yan received her pleading gaze, but his fiery hands didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. He continued to slide his hands towards the two girls' most important parts. In the next second, they lost control of their bodies. The Bawa sisters raised their heads and raised their hands to cover their mouth. They closed their eyes and completely accepted the other party's actions. The sound of soft panting echoed in the small wardrobe.